Bud, what's up, man? Can you hear me?
I can, Zach. How you doing, brother?
Oh yeah, I'm doing good now. I was getting kind of nervous there for a second, but we're all gonna be all right. Where my family lives in South Florida is near the Everglades, so internet service is kind of spotty sometimes.
Well, it's a persistent community, my friend. We'll just keep trying, and if we got to reboot it 10 times, that's what we do, right?
That's right. That's right. Oh well, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sticking with me there. I took the Spaces off of my phone, where I thought that Spaces worked better off people's cell phones, but I think I'm getting better Wi-Fi right now from my laptop, so I realize I can do it off here.
Been an exciting couple of days so far, huh?
Man, it's just like it seems like day after day, it's like something new, which is great, because when things were going down, it's like we were just hoping for something, a morsel of anything.
Yeah, it's hard when you're just living on faith. And, I think things are going to happen pretty quickly. And there's going to be a couple disappointed communities inside of the chain, but if they don't lose their faith, that it'll end up working out for them as well.
Most definitely. So now that we've got some people in here, if you guys could do me a favor and just go to the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, if you're on, hit the comment button, and then you can share the Spaces post out to everybody on your Twitter feed. Uh, Go ahead and do that. We can get some more people in here. I know that we had Royson that I talked to previously. He said that he was going to come show up for a bit. Assistant Steven said he may surprise us with an appearance.
So Zach, what's at the forefront of your mind right now as far as like pDAI and Atropa? Like what is capturing the majority of your thoughts?
So currently, like it's just wild to me to see how strong it's bounced back. I really didn't see it bouncing back like this. Um, and I think everybody else is pretty surprised too. I thought we were going to have like a lot like major corrections back down, just because of people scooping the bottom and just trading it a lot, and with large quantities, I guess. Um, and I just maybe it did that for like a little bit at the beginning, but I think that it just seems to me like the chart is showing me that there's somebody that really wants it to go up in price. Like that people are defending every new level this thing. Um, and that's exciting. So far, that's what I'm noticing. What about you?
Um, obviously the price action's been great, but uh, I'm thinking about liquidity pools. Um, and what happens to people inside of these liquidity pools if we get a violent shakeup. Um, when I reflect on what has happened in the Atropa system, uh, I'm of the belief, and I can't prove this, it's just a belief, but I think the Richard and Maria FUD was an orchestrated event, and I believe that was a pressure test of the system. And I can tell you, like, during that time, in some of my LP pools, like I was an LP in Treasury and Bear. And so, like, when you go to your deck screener, it'll list that LP pool or that trading pair by whichever one has the majority token in that pair. And I watched like my Teddy Treasury pool flip flop as far as what was the more dominant token. And, I'm concerned, and I want to share this with everybody. If they feel like there's a violent move to the upside in the near term on pDAI, being how I have been a proponent of providing LP, your LP position, your token counts inside that pool are going to swing to the token that that's not pDAI. So, I wanted to make a point to let everybody be aware of that. Like, I think it's if you're LPing pDAI with like PUSDT, I don't believe that those will move as fast, like PUSDT, PUSDC. So I think you got to really be careful right now. If you are providing LP.
Yeah, so I just I go through these like periods of time where like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like bullish on LPs, like I want to set all these LPs up, and then like I I don't know if I like psych myself out or if I get interested in something new and then I like remove some and then I remove more and then eventually like okay my LPs are gone, I'm in these new tokens or whatever. Like it's like I keep flip flopping, right? And I never like just in like one LP. And I wish I would have done that because I know that you really did well during the whole shakeup period. I really had wished I'd been in LPs that through that volatility and that volume. But just recently, since the rat Bitcoin ratio to pDAI has come down, I recently did start buying some of that, and I'm gonna be LPing my rat Bitcoin with my pDAI, just because I know that they do kind of move similarly, and if pDAI does go to $1, then I figured rat Bitcoin is not far behind, obviously, and will probably peg near the same time, I would imagine, or quote unquote peg, and then afterwards, Bitcoin does its thing, and I just kind of can collect fees on that. But yeah, that's kind of what my mind has been gearing more towards that lately.
Yeah, I'm with you on that pair. I think you're exactly right. I think those are the tip of the spear and will lead as far as the X's if there is a violent move up. I just wanted to say that to people so they didn't get upstuck or experience some permanent loss prior to this move. Personally, I pulled all my pDAI LPs. I still have a lot of different LPs, but I did that for a couple reasons. One, I didn't want to end up losing my pDAI to the other side of the trade in the LP, but I also wanted to take it off the market. I wanted to make it more scarce so that as people do try to come in, when there is positive purchasing power and my tokens are off the market inside my wallet, there will be less available, which means the price will appreciate faster.
I get what you're saying. I'm thinking more like that's like my long-term play, that LP. I mean, like think about like the big LPs on Ethereum, right? Like definitely stable coins and Bitcoin and like that. Like I can't imagine what like the volume may be at a point in time. Dies at $1, PulseChain will look a whole lot different then. That is definitely for sure.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think, just looking at the way this thing is moving and, when I came into the public realm and started speaking with Stephen, my whole point of engaging in the conversation was Allodial title and how important that was. And, we now have this opportunity, this thing that is going to set pDAI apart from every other stablecoin, is that there's nobody that can take it from you, and the fact that PulseChain now sits outside of the purview of the SEC, being how they didn't file anything for the appeal in that case that Judge Layman ruled on. It's such a powerful thing, because those of you that hold it can go anywhere in the world with your funds, and there's nobody that can take it from you. And I think a Lodial title, if we can keep the momentum on this narrative, even past the pDAI, you can change the financial world. Like in 2008, when we had that financial cataclysm, the reason that was able to take place and so detrimental to everybody is because you don't own any of your own stocks. You don't own any of your own assets. So these people, these speculators, write these derivative contracts, and they put your assets at risk by writing these derivatives. So, I mean, that's what all the CDOs were. So I'm not against derivatives. I'm not against speculators. But in 2008, if everybody owned their own stock certificates, then none of your assets would have been compromised. And those people that got sideways on those derivatives trades, they would have gotten wiped out, but the rest of the economy would have stayed standing. So, when you really apply this to global macro finance, this narrative will take the volatility out of the market and protect all of the everyday consumers. That's why I came into the public sphere, was to help promote this. And I got asked to help write the description for DAI that's been going around on Twitter, and I was really proud to be a part of that. I played a small role in that. But the conversation of a Lodial title, man, it's what is going to bring everything back under control and give people ownership of assets. And we now have a place via PulseChain, via these NFTs, where we can tokenize, whether it's real estate ownings or stocks. You don't have to trust anybody ever again to hold the ownership tokens of anything that you're trying to purchase. Like, this is what PulseChain is supposed to be about. So I just don't, when we get to the dollar, I hope, the creative people that we have in this space that are creating the memes, I hope they stay with it. I don't have that talent, but I try to thank them and be positive and encouraging to those folks, because they're critical in spreading the messaging on this.
No, I definitely agree with you there. So what do you think needs to happen for people to, in the normal world, to get more interested in this whole Allodial title thing?
It's a great question. It seems like for people to get a hold of stuff, I really think the artists that we have in the community, that are creating the memes, and there's a couple. What is it? Hex Jam is one of them. He made that 9-minute clip from Midday, and then there's Crypto Anon did some stuff. But these we have to get it out in a digestible form, because it's a complex thing when you try to sit down and explain the difference between a feudal system, which we live in today, versus a system of allodial title. And I was so happy when I started seeing some of these meme creators, and they were like making raps, and they were making music, and they understood it, right? And that was so powerful, that you can put it into it like a form of music where people will hear it enough and it's catchy enough, right? And then if enough of us understand this and we can continue to speak about it, then you just got to hit people like, that 100 monkey effect, where when enough of us get it, then it becomes something. So I think it's a multifaceted approach, and I just, man, I cannot overstate how important the memes and the music and the raps and the little blurbs that people put together, like the guy on the street with being interviewed, like those things are great, and everybody should share them and continue to repost them. And I mean, DAI is going to change the world. Like it's the first step in changing the world. pDAI is, but the concept of a Lodial title is what is going to save humanity, and it's going to make this world better for everyone.
For anybody,
do you mind maybe breaking down a Allodial title for like the layman, or maybe people that don't understand what that means?
Sure.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you the same thing, if you don't mind, bud.
Sure. So, Allodial title is direct ownership. Basically, it means that you hold the title, the title of ownership. So, like in today's world with stocks, if you get into your Robinhood account and you start trading stocks, you don't actually own that stock. You're trading, and you think you own it, but you trade in a derivative contract of that stock. That stock's actually held at the CFTC. So, allodial title, in simple terms, is direct ownership of an asset with no intermediary, no middleman. And even look at your bank accounts. Like, you think that money's yours? It's not. Like, if that bank goes under, and you have, so like in America, we have FDIC protection, right? So if a bank is bankrupted and you have less than $250,000 in your account, the federal government will step in and make sure that your funds are secure. Anything over that amount, you're third in line in a bankruptcy, and you will not get that money back. Because when you deposit your money into a bank account, you give up direct ownership of your money.
So you're saying, like with pDAI, technically the person who has pDAI in their wallet, they have 100% ownership, and that essentially the allodial title is?
Yes, and it's the only stable coin that you have direct ownership of, because and a lot of that is because of PulseChain now, being how there's no regulator, there's no backdoor, there's no PulseChain Foundation to call and freeze a wallet. There's no Circle to call or Tether to call, right? There's no admin key. And that a lot of people that have come into this space were not around, like, in the early days of crypto, where, like, that was why Hex was so important, because it taught so many of us about immutable lock smart contracts, right? Like, the code is the code in Hex, and there's there is inflation in it, but it's written into the code. So that was the very first thing that the crypto community could use to stake and generate yield without having to give up ownership. So you go back and you look at like Celsius or any of those other lending protocols that all went away because, well, like the one guy went to prison. But in order to get any sort of yield, you had to give up your ownership, right? So a decentralized stablecoin like pDAI, so long as you maintain your private keys, and you could go anywhere in the world and have access to a computer, you can get your funds, and there's nobody to call to freeze your funds, right? Like even if they called MetaMask, who gives a shit? You use a different front end. You could use Internet Money Wallet, right? So that's why it's important, is because there's no admin keys, there's no freeze function, there's no kill switch. It is the very first stablecoin that will return ownership to the token holder.
Love it.
That's really good.
Hell yeah.
And I'm happy to elaborate on that if I'm not speaking clearly, or if you got to say things 100 different ways because people learn in different ways. So if anybody has questions on that, man, I'm happy to try to help you understand. Like, it's a complex thing, but I think we'll get it.
My question is slightly related. How do you think the RH and the Security Exchange Commission outcome is going to affect the pDAI? And I guess, do you think it's affecting the current pricing? Will it affect the peg? Or what do you think about that?
So I'll answer that, and then Zach, if you would chime in and fill in any holes I leave. So the reason that ruling is so important is because we are the only blockchain that has, on PulseChain, that has legal precedent that says we do not fall under the purview of the SEC. Like, that is the most powerful thing I think that's ever happened in finance. So whatever law they write to outlaw, like say the United States government passes a law that says you can't have a decentralized stablecoin. Okay, it doesn't matter because PulseChain doesn't fall under the purview of the SEC. Like, this is Pandora's box, and it's been opened, and you cannot put this thing back in the cage now. So it's critical. That ruling was absolutely critical for this. Zach, go ahead.
No, just what the thoughts running through my mind right now are just like, and I've said this a long time ago, like I feel like Richard Hart really baited the SEC into coming after him, and I feel like maybe it was for this purpose, to get that ruling.
Yeah, I agree with that. When he was doing his outrage marketing, man, that was like the most embarrassing moment in crypto for me, because I had recommended Richard to friends of mine, and he was acting like that. And I mean, it was just, God, I felt terrible when he was doing it. But I didn't, I don't communicate with Richard. I don't have any inside track. I don't have any inside information. I'm just a observer like everyone else, right? But I didn't exit. I didn't sell anything. I still believed in everything he was doing. And thank God I didn't. Like, I think it's all just about, like, we're almost to the point of payoff. I think in hindsight now, it's rather obvious that he was baiting the SEC to come after him, and their case was garbage, man. So, but he knew And if you go back and look at Richard's tweets, I can't remember the term he used, but in order to get case law, you have to have a victim. And Richard let himself be the victim. So then that way he could get the ruling to set case law, which is really brave for him to have done that.
Yeah, I mean, if that's the case, I mean, wow, you know, wow. That's all I can really say to that, honestly.
Yeah, we'll see in time, man. I've said this before, and I'll just say it again. Like, I feel like we have walked a camel through the eye of a needle here, right? Like, at any point, had Trump lost the election, this could have all gotten wrecked. If Richard lost the lawsuit, it could have got wrecked. If the community bailed on the Maria Richard FUD, it all could have got wrecked, right? But those of us that are still here, I mean this, and I'm not, like, I've posted this before, but in 5 years, man, when they go back and look at how this was done, everybody that was here fighting, man, you guys are all going to be heroes. You're going to be the people that change the world. And like I've said it, man, I'm proud of everybody that's still here. And, you know, thank every one of you, because without all of you who are engaged in this and believe in this and are working, you know, working against the narrative and against the people that you used to trust, and the, you know, even inside our own community, like the OGs who didn't get a pDAI bag, their only concern is making sure that you come into the course so they can dump on your head. And I'm an OG too, but I don't want people there to dump. I want to build a better world. And I think pDAI is what is going to it's going to be the spark that starts the fire.
Yeah, that's what's kept me around so long in pDAI, and even through all the FUD events and things like that. Like, I honestly, during the Richard and Maria FUD and everything, like, I was in my mind at such like a low point about pDAI. Like, I couldn't believe myself, you know, but I kept going back to the thought, like, why is PulseChain here? You know, like, what got us excited about this at the beginning? You know, like, what pDAI means to the world afterwards, and, you know, how just about the large thing this is that could change the world. And, you know, that's the only thing that kept me holding on to this, like, thin thread of, like, hope, basically, was, like, not for myself to get rid of that, which, I mean, that's like an end result that's nice and everything, but it was just like, why are we here? You know, like, the world's biggest airdrop for what? You know, change the money, change the world where, right? Like, these are all the things that we had been hoping for a long time. And, you know, this is just the one thing that we've seen so far that can give us that true freedom, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. And, you know, I would like everybody, like, I think it's so important, and I've tried to say this on streams I've gone on, that you guys are the very first people in a brand new financial system. So, like, you have a Lodial title of not all of the tokens, right? Like, if you're invested in something that has admin keys, you can still get wrecked. So you have to be really careful with the stuff that you're investing in. But if you exit, like, let's say you exit to Ethereum, like, so I just had a hex stake on Ethereum, and it was like a 5-year, it was one of the pre-big payday stakes, right? And it was just a small one. It was like a couple T shares. So I went over, I did it on PulseChain because I had it on each chain. And then I went over to Ethereum and did it. And, like, it was only, the hex value was like $85.80, and the gas price was $85.50. Like, I only made a 30% trade between the gas and the unstake. So you got to remember, if you're going to bridge over to Ethereum purposefully tried to wreck us when they changed that S comp load and they made all of those stakes basically worthless until there's more price appreciation, or if Ethereum chooses to change that, which they will eventually once we force them to. But why would you go support something over there on Ethereum when they were part of the group or the consortium that tried to destroy the ethos of decentralized finance?
Yeah, I agree. That's why I joined PulseChain, because I learned about Hex, and it was only after the fact where I tried to do the same thing as you. I tried to pull out some cash from a Hex stake or whatever, or even just buy Hex, and then the cost of the gas was like pretty much almost equal to what I was willing to invest. It's like only like $100. It's like, what the fuck? Sorry, but like I'm not gonna invest in this, right? It's a complete waste of time.
Yeah, I just don't want people to forget, and I don't, when you get gains here, like, I personally think 9iron's right. I think that they're going to use the Aave protocol and the Comp protocol, those lending pools, and they are going to push pDAI, and it's going to outperform everything else, including the entirety of the Atropa system, because of the slippage inside the liquidity pools. But the Atropa system will be the second best performing assets. But remember, Richard during his FUD event was telling everybody to take down their liquidity and break their bonds between Atropa and the rest of the core system. Well, what that's going to do in a price spike is the cores are not going to get the pump. They will not pump unless people in the pDAI community decide to move value over and buy core tokens.
Does that kind of line up with what what he was saying about like we'll win something but we won't have to give up our pDAI or something? Do you think that follows that same idea? Or
I think so. I'll just tell you, like, I plan on exiting none. I'm here for it, man. I'm here for the war. And I'm going to provide, I'm just going to speak in terms as if what 9iron is put out is correct. Okay. So once that happens, then I've already moved some of my value from the Atropa system around into places where I think they're going to be better performing. And then once we get that price spike and those ratios shift, I'm going to move that value back across the Atropa system to enjoy those gains. And once the Atropa system and pDAI kind of stabilize, then I'll probably be looking at some of the core tokens. But that's not my first priority. My first priorities are going to be to make sure that I'm not doing anything that's going to affect, and I don't want to say like I've purposefully not bought too much of anything, because I've looked at myself as like, well, what if my wallet was to get compromised, right? And somebody stole my tokens. I'm really safe with my security. I give that like a 0% chance, but let's just say it. I would hate to be the reason that the system got broken. So I could have allocated a lot more into it, but I just did enough to where I felt like, okay, worst case scenario, if I get taken out, it's not going to hurt the ecosystem at all.
so there's something to be said about like spreading what you have, right?
I think so, but I also think that like right now when we're seeing pDAI have all this strength, and this is just in my opinion, guys. I'm holding the pDAI for maybe rotating a bit later because of the strength that pDAI has. It's going to be beating everything in the ratios unless a major mover, like a big whale comes in and buys a bunch of something, to move the ratios the other way. But I think my plan is just like, I think the first thing I might buy when pDAI becomes $1 is probably Teddy Bear, right? Because if pDAI becomes $1, then that means the Atropa ecosystem is working, right? And Teddy Bear will probably be the biggest meme coin in the world after that. Just my opinion.
I would also look at like Atropa possibly. I think that ratio could be good to get back on. There's, none of us know. We're just kind of guessing. Everybody is going to have to take the responsibility to go into like pools.versal.app and start looking at liquidity and start trying to figure out like where's the best place, what's the best way to move my values so I can get multipliers on it after we get a peg. So, I would just tell you to look through the Atropa system first, then, once we get that going, because, okay, I want to talk about a little bit about like how I view the Atropa system. Zach, if you want me to,
Yeah, please, yeah.
Okay.
Then we can chat about it and go back and forth on it.
Okay. So on a stream with Steven, I had put a lot of thought to this and had spent about 6 months with it. And it was around the idea of computational fluid dynamics. And I felt like I was really onto something, but I didn't really know how was best to bring that idea forward to the community. And I think I finally have I don't know if it's the perfect way, but I think it's a better way than I was using before. So think of Atropa like a submarine that is sitting at the bottom of the ocean, and think about like as we started getting liquidity pushed in, think about that as like air pressure, and we're starting to get lift, right? And by changing the pressure inside of the submarine, the entirety of the Atropa system, it started to come off the bottom and it started to rise up and rise up and rise up. And then, it would kind of ebb and flow, but we're starting to move up through the resistance of the water. And the Maria Richard Fudd event was like the front hull of the submarine took a torpedo, okay? And the damn thing started to sink. Well, the reason that's so important is because Maria was able, through those liquidity pools, to be able to basically seal off that front hull, right? And we sank for a while, but then the pressure started to build back. And, just for metaphorical terms, we were able to get inside that front hole, make the repairs, drain the water, repressurize it, and now we're back to floating. And that's what was so critical about that 99% dip is we took basically as big a torpedo as we could have taken, but it didn't blow up, man. It survived it. And so now the more pressure that comes into the Atropa system, the submarine, it will continue to rise. And think about like the surfacing being the $1 value. Like that's when we clear the water. Like that, to me, in my mind, makes the most sense about how to explain it. So at any point, if any part of that sub or that Atropa system takes a hit, we know now that you can isolate it and, maybe lose a little bit of ground. But once the repairs are made and the redistribution of liquidity and value through those pools, it can stand back up. And when, you guys got to realize we're not real big as an ecosystem. And there's investment bankers, there's sharks in the water, man, that are going to try to kill us. And we got to be able to withstand these attacks. So, to my mind, that's why that was so important. And there's percentage wise, if pDAI trades up to a penny over the next couple days, right? And then the move from a penny to $1 is just like it's real close to a 99% move, right? We've already survived one of those. We know, we don't even have to guess. We know we can do it. And that's what it's so important of the Atropa system. It is the first line of defense to protect the peg.
So would you say that the whole FUD event, almost like a stress test, though, maybe on both sides, on the Atropa side and on the pDAI side?
Yes. Yeah, I believe now that, as I was going through it, I didn't have any contact with anybody, right? Like, I was living it the same way everybody in this spaces was living it, right? Like, but I held on to the idea. And in retrospect, I believe that Richard and Maria orchestrated that FUD event in order to see, okay, if we do peg this thing, let's test it one time before we do this to make sure it can withstand the pressure. So absolutely, it was an orchestrated FUD event.
Yeah, I mean, based on what you're saying, I'm just going to say it's a theory, but I kind of agree with it. I really do think that it was some sort of technological stress test for something else. And even when you look back at the last 3 or 4 months, it looks, even when you look at the chart now and how it's behaving, it looks like we're just moving through stages. And we're just not aware of what those stages are. We're just always looking back and trying to put pieces together in the moment to figure out what's actually happening. But I don't actually your theories are really great, and there's a lot of other community members that are bringing their own ideas as well that are good. But I don't think you or any of us would have arrived to that sort of clarity until really how many months after it happened.
Yeah, that's it, man. Like I said, I'm just watching it like everyone else and trying to share these thoughts. And if I'm wrong, like, I'm just doing the best I can, right? Like, I'm just trying to I'm trying to take in all the data and be an observer and share my thoughts. And, I'm just one person, and I'd love to hear the opinions of others. I can't keep up with what like 9iron does. Uh, it's so great that there's so many people here that are trying so hard to share this information and make it digestible for people, because you don't want to have a central point of failure, right? Like, the more of us that get this and understand this, that's what changes the world. Like, Zach, do you have anything to add to that metaphor, or what are your thoughts?
No, not really. I'm just sitting here just in amazement, honestly. Like, all the stuff that we're talking about, like, it's bringing me back to like when we all got started, and I was thinking about the first Telegram room when 9iron was telling us all that we should look at buying pDAI, and yeah, no, I was kind of just like reminiscing in my mind just for the last few minutes, but yeah, I just really think we're in a special little position right now, and obviously, like, having this all come to fruition right now after the whole FUD storm and all those events playing out, like, I'm just glad that our community is still here and stronger, and the people that were here before that may have sold their bags at the bottom and told people to leave, it's like they're not here anymore. So I feel like we're a bit like lighter, but it's like a little bit better, that it's happened this way, kind of like shedding some of that weight off. But yeah, no, I definitely agree with you guys there.
Well, shedding that dead weight, or that's not the right way to say that. The traders, shaking them out was critical. So it wasn't just the pressure test and the FUD event. It was a technological pressure test, but it was also removing a lot of bad actors. Because if you're still here, man, you're here on faith and belief, and you're winning, and you're the right people. Like you are the cypherpunks. You're the people that are willing to put value behind something you believe in that you think is going to change the world, right? So, you know, and I think it's really important here, and I make a point of this when I see something I like. I thank whoever put it together. I tell them great job. I try to be a place of positivity. You know, one of the faults I have with Richard is I don't like how he speaks to people. And I don't think that as a community, if you're telling people they're retarded or, you know, being condescending to people, that you're going to draw them in. You know, I think positive messaging, and the more of us that put out a positive message, when people come to start looking at, hey, what is this thing? They'll be more interested at doing more research if they don't see a bunch of hateful people engaged in conversation.
Right. No, I definitely agree with you there. When it comes to like 9iron's latest research and decentralized means video and all that, the whole compound Hyperloop situation, the last thing that needs to happen, I guess, is for the, quote unquote PulseChain pioneers to basically like do what? Do they need to like assume like the governance role of a compound or something? Like, what is like that next step that needs to happen?
So, with the way I understand it, is they need to clear that bad debt that exists inside of the original MakerDAO, right? The woe debt. And then they start moving into the collateral pool, like the lending pools, and they can, by doing this, I'm not telling you that it's necessary that they do it, because it's not. As a community, there's enough protocols and systems inside the Atropa system to get us to the peg, but it will be a slow, longer, more arduous process to get there. If you wanted to do an Insta-Peg, it can be done and it can be protected. But, that was like when I was on those streams with Steven and we were trying to figure out, like, is MakerDAO dead? As I was going through it, it was like, I'm not a developer. I don't write code. And it all come down to my mind was, in that cage function, was there a 1 or a 0? And I just decided to be of two minds. Like, okay, Maker's either dead or it isn't. I'm just going to wait to see what happens. And as some of this information has come out from 9iron, it appears to me, and I still am allowing myself to be of two minds of it, that we're going to be able to use I don't even know if I'm going to say this right, but like, it's not going to be the original MakerDAO, but we'll be able to use a form of it, a fixed form of Maker via Aave and Comp.
I have a quick question, I guess, for more of the normie people or more of the people that are like maybe a little more doubtful about pDAI pegging. How does the pDAI community, or how does pDAI avoid a Luna situation where, let's say, we do achieve a peg and then we lose it, or is that possible that we lose the peg? I know we talked about Atropa being like the sort of like fortress or whatever, but what is in place for the person that wants to hold pDAI to kind of, I know it's not financial advice, we're just educating each other, but you know what I mean? Like, what does the person have that holds pDAI and it pegs, that they know, at least from a knowledge and information perspective, like that they know that it won't go back to zero or go back to 1 cent or less than a cent after it pegs.
Zach, do you want to go first?
So I mean, I'm not too familiar, I guess, with the way the compound would hold the peg. I mean, because we know that MakerDAO is not going to work the same as it used to, right? It's just gonna, if the compound thing works out, it's gonna mint a bunch of pDAI, right? For I think trillions of pDAI would be minted or whatever, but then it would just sit in those lending pools, and then I just don't know that how, like, yeah, if somebody sells a bunch of pDAI, so somebody goes and sells 100 million into Pulse, obviously that's going to move the price down, right, of pDAI, but then like is some that brings it back up? I'm not sure.
So with Luna, that was Lunaterra, and there was admin keys there, right? It wasn't everything that's ever been tried before has had the admin key risk, and that's why they've all failed. And it goes back to that conversation again about Allodial title, like with Celsius, where some of this value in these stables got put into a place where the underlying assets were corrupted, and so that's why it went to zero. pDAI doesn't have admin keys, right? So that's your first level of protection. The wallet that holds the majority of the voting shares in Aave, like that's a PulseChain pioneer, and so the same thing with Comp, and you'd have to work through those decentralized protocols in order to corrupt it. There's things that can be done, like what Maria did when he sent all that Atropa and pDAI to the burn address. Well, what if we get a peg and the largest holder of the Aave tokens sends all those to a burn address? Well, then it can't be voted on again, right? Like there's things, and if I was in control of those tokens, I would really consider it, because I wouldn't want to have that ability, right? Like I would want to disregard, or I would want to remove that risk from myself. No matter what you do to me, there's nothing I can do to change what exists.
Okay, so you're saying that there's a protocol, there's a risk for the protocol tokens that are associated with MakerDAO. I don't know too much about them myself, but you're saying if somebody has like a majority voting on these tokens, or majority holder, that they have some sort of like sway or influence over the peg?
Not necessarily of the peg, but of the functionality of the comp protocol. Like they could call in a governance vote, or they could make a change. And I don't want to talk like a ton on that, because I think the right person to get to speak on that would be either Decentralized Me or Nine Iron. They seem to be two of the best, are the most well-versed people. I'm more schooled, I think, in Atropa and Allodial title and on pDAI, right? Like I'm kind of getting to the edge of my knowledge with that, and I just,
That's fair.
okay. If they wanted,
It was more for the crowd. Like, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of my questions are the general. They're for myself, but they're also for like people that I'm sure that there's like questions in regards to that, because we are building a lot of momentum with this token, and it obviously, I think a lot of attention started to turn to us as a community again. For probably how many times it's already happened. So I'm just trying to like open up the, not necessarily debate, but just any concerns that people may have about what could happen. Because we have a lot of positive momentum going for us right now.
For sure, we
Yeah,
appreciate sides, man. It's like we all have to think about this with a level head. Nobody has all the answers, right? So we kind of just have to, keep that. Well, and I see we got my big buddy coexistent Steven up here. What's going on, Steve? How have you been?
Hey, good evening and good afternoon.
Can't hear you, bud. You
Oh,
Come closer, speaker.
Can you hear me now?
A little better. I mean, how's it for
Yeah,
everybody else?
better.
To like some sort of different speaker, but yeah, I just wanted to quickly say hello everyone, and I wanted to just comment on the Terra Luna. Terra Luna, it basically was a hyper minting, and the reason why it failed because it was a reflexive feedback loop with no real liquidity that was backing it. So that's one of the things that I'm seeing with this current Hyperloop. The way that I can see it working with this compound Aave is if there is millions and millions and potentially billions of dollars that actually come into the system to back the liquidity. I don't really see it working if it just loops and has this kind of price mechanism that pushes the price up to $1 without any real liquidity. That was something that I was discussing with 99 Capital, and I don't think he really understood what I was describing. So yeah, if there's no liquidity that backs it, then just like you said, Zach, if someone takes out 100 million, it's built on a house of cards. Like okay, the price might stay at $1, but there's no liquidity that's in the system to actually be able to even take out. So yeah, unless somebody actually comes and brings in a ton of liquidity, then it would have it could have a similar fate to Terra Luna from that perspective. So that was actually a good question. So I just wanted to chime in on that.
No, I appreciate that sentiment, honestly. And the one thing I would say to that is like, so, obviously we're on this, course, right? This trajectory up to $1. And I think that if we're all of the belief, right, that there's these PulseChain pioneers, doing all these, workings from the outer layer, basically things that we can't really understand or see. And their intention is to get pDAI to become $1 and things like this. And it's all well and good, intention wise. I just believe that there would be that like liquidity backing to come in at a certain point. I mean, from where? I mean, from who knows? Hex has had a lot of whales obviously support it since the beginning. We obviously know Richard's got his big backing from many years ago. And obviously no expectations, obviously, but it's my belief that if we're here for PulseChain, we're here for this whole DeFi movement, here for this Allodial title movement, that things will kind of just like happen, and I mean, I know it's like putting a lot of faith into something, but personally it's like I didn't put any more money into pDAI than I could personally see going to zero and be okay with. But it's like not everybody, some people are overinvested maybe or other things, but I think that we just have to really remember that like, there's bigger things happening that we don't really understand. There's bigger people possibly, doing all these movements behind it, and that, maybe we have very liquidity on PulseChain as it is right now, which would grow obviously as, everything moves upwards. But also I just believe that as this becomes successful and people see it, they're going to be rushing in to PulseChain, trying to, give us their liquidity basically. And a lot of things can happen, with the farms and things like that, to incentivize people to do that. I just don't think that it would go to $1 and like with these PulseChain pioneers just, rushing it up to $1 with no liquidity to back it.
I'd probably agree with that. The thing that I'd love to try and work out, but I don't even know how to work out, is how much actual liquidity would you need? So some really good points that people have made is, and things that I've thought about and things that Bud and I have discussed as well, is the current financial system, it's also built on a house of cards. So if you have a bank run, then the whole system collapses. So what minimum amount of liquidity could actually keep this entire system protected without actually and also factoring the amount of people that would probably come in and out of the system and leave the system? Would you actually need that full amount of liquidity? My answer would be no, because I think that there'd be enough people that would actually want to just stay here for life and treat it as a new financial system. But I just wonder what that number could be based on how many
stablecoins that there are on the system, like what that percentage might be. I'd be really interested to know that, because that would be...
How to run that through ChatGPT.
Yeah, I did try to run that through ChatGPT. I can't recall what answer it gave me, but I might get back to ChatGPT and I might answer that question. I think I asked yesterday, but I don't know if it gave me an answer or not. So
honestly, I feel like so many people would stay inside PulseChain, you know, because it's like it's too early in the bull run, right? The cycle is not nearly over yet. You know, if pDAI goes up to $1, people are gonna be like, okay, now what's next, right? And if DAI becomes $1 and there's some kind of PulseChain wallet or something like that, and there's these things that keep people inside the blockchain. I mean, I watched Sami's video recently, and he was kind of talking about all these things that could happen to allow PulseChain to kind of like thrive through a bear market, right? What keeps people on a blockchain through a bear market, and that's, you know, obviously the stablecoin yield, liquidity pool yields, and things like that. But yeah, I just definitely believe, you know, the amount of people that come into PulseChain would offset the amount of people that would try to leave. And I feel like maybe $100 million or something like that, you know, maybe that may be sufficient to kind of back this initial, you know, like, you know, rush of whatever happened utility. What do you guys think?
I don't think 100 million is anywhere near enough. Just my opinion, because what happens in a Hyperloop scenario where pDAI goes to $1, all the tokens that it's connected with, it also affects all the liquidity pools that those tokens are connected with, due to the way that the V2 Uniswap liquidity X times Y constant mathematical formula works. So all the other tokens get pumped as well. So I don't think 100 million would be enough. I could easily see, you know, someone with I could easily see just one. There's just all it would require is just one person going, all right, I'm done. I'm out of crypto now. I'm removing all my risk. I bought pDAI. I've got 50 million pDAI. There's half your liquidity. I could easily see someone who's been accumulating PulseChain who got sick of all this down and everything that Richard has said and done in the community and go, all right, I've got my millions. I'm done now. So I think it would need to be way more than 1 million. 100 million rather, because it affects all the other liquidity pools. That's the factor that, you know, it's all good and well that pDAI are believers, but there's a lot of people who aren't believers. There are a lot of people who are probably just here for a cycle to make their money and then go buy their mansions and Lambos. So I think it would need to be like in the tens of billions, personally. That's just my opinion. Just because of all the, you know, there's still a lot of risk. There's still a lot of risk in crypto, and there's no guarantee that everything will continue after this. I believe that it will, but it's just I just think it's going to need billions. That's just my opinion. But again, I might have to go ChatGPT and find out.
Yeah.
What about, I mean this because it's clear like now that we're having this uptrend on the chart that people have started to ask about liquidity, and now I'm seeing, which I never knew about before, it was Richard Hart minted 300,000 Bitcoin into PulseChain. Is that confirmed? I mean, I watched the video actually just an hour ago of him saying it, but how does that relate? Because I know they're talking about posts of value transfer without losing value. Is this all connected to this liquidity pool that we need?
So I think you're mistaken.
To basically,
with the 300,000 Bitcoin, that video that you saw, he was talking about pre-Hex, I believe. There was 300,000 Bitcoin that was free claimed or something, or
no, I think he was saying it was part of PulseChain. Like he was talking to somebody about PulseChain. He's like, he mentioned the normals or whatever, went to PulseChain, and then he was like, and did you know? Maybe somebody might want to watch the video again to verify it, but I see a lot of people talking about his Bitcoin bags. So I'm just like, is that another way for him to possibly transfer the value from his Bitcoin ownership into PulseChain, and then thus providing like that number that Coexistence Stephen was talking about that will be required, that kind of counts for people exiting the chain?
If he has 300,000 Bitcoin, that's like $60 billion or something. No, maybe million. Yeah. I mean, obviously that's sufficient enough money to back anything. But yeah, I don't think it's all speculation still, whose money that is, or not whose money is being moved right now. Like, I'm thinking of two things, like the Bitcoin that's being moved on the market right now and relating it to this. But yeah, supposedly Richard Hart has 300,000 Bitcoin from long ago. How he got that, I don't know, probably mining or buying it. But yeah,
I'd like to add a little.
Is it minted into the code of the PulseChain network? That's what I want to verify.
No, I don't believe that is the case.
I'd like to add a little context here. So let's say that we do, they peg pDAI through the Aave comp lending protocols. Okay, so the ratios, the biggest liquidity pool in PulseChain is Atropa DAI on V1. And the ratio in that pool has steadily ticked down. I think it's like 25.8 right now, maybe a little higher. Let's just say 26 for relative terms. When you have that peg, right, you're going to see that ratio fall. And I don't know what it's going to fall to, but those ARB bots and the Atropa system are going to rebalance all of the liquidity pools in that event. Okay, so you're going to see, like, if pDAI did 100x overnight in an Insta-Peg, Atropa has been moving almost exactly at the same ratios, but it won't do it in this move. Those pools will rebalance, and the Atropa token might only go up a quarter of what pDAI does, or maybe less. It might only go, like, that ratio might drop to 3-1, right? And so as the liquidity from that event moves through the Atropa web and it rebalances all of that liquidity, okay, then you're going to have the Atropa system and those ratios at a lot lower rate than what pDAI is. Okay, and then all of the core tokens, if you remember, Richard was yelling at people to take their liquidity down. Do not bond the core tokens to this Atropa trash token or to pDAI. Well, what that's going to do, if they do an Insta-Peg, is those R bots will adjust those ratios in those liquidity pools and rebalance it. And then the Atropa system will hold pDAI up at that rate. Okay. And as value comes in, those R bots will continue, and the Aave comp lending pools will work to balance that ratio, and that liquidity will be distributed through the web. And that's why I foresee, like, in a scenario of an Insta-Peg, you get 100x in pDAI, you might get like a 9x in Atropa, and that might be the best performer behind pDAI. And then all those pools will rebalance, and it will help stabilize it. So you then have two separate protocols protecting the peg. You'll have, well, three, I'm sorry. You'll have Comp and Aave working with Maker to balance that. Then you'll have the Atropa web, which is a lot bigger than most people know, working as a front line of defense for the trade, for the trade targets to come in and attack it. And then the cores will move up because of excitement, but it's a very dynamic system. Like, when you say it's going to need $1 billion to stabilize, I don't think so, because it's a very dynamic situation. You guys got to remember, man, this has never been done before. None of us know. We're just totally speculating here as to what this new financial technology is going to be.
It's exciting.
Stephen, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's interesting, but I guess the way that I see the Atropa ecosystem and what you're trying to say is as the decentralized financial system. So I see it as replicating the same kind of logic that the current financial system. So the reason why a bank run wouldn't occur is because people have all their assets or all their liquidity locked up in assets, so stocks and real estate and commodities. So they're not just going to take all their money out because it's tied up in things. So the percentage of real liquidity in the world, it's all like fractionally reserved. So I mean, just according to ChatGPT, so just in relation to the question that I was trying to understand before, ChatGPT saying to make it safe, the reserve ratio should be 5 to 10%. So if there's like 100 billion P-stable tokens, then 5 to 10 billion should be in the system to make it safe. And that's probably something that I would agree with. Like, I mean, even a billion, right? I mean, Moon King. Moon King talks about becoming a billionaire in this cycle. So that's one person who could become a billionaire. And if that one person then takes out $1 billion in USD from the system, then that collapses the whole system. So I definitely think it needs to be more than $1 billion, just from an intuitive perspective. But what you're saying about the Atropa ecosystem and the rebalancing, I think it plays that role of the way that the financial system keeps the liquidity in the system and has it flow through it. So it actually, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
You got to consider slippage too, right? So, like, let's say somebody wanted to exit $1 billion of pDAI. Well, if there's only 100 million in liquidity there, first off, they can't do it. The slippage would not allow it. So that's really a choke point for what you can get out, right? Because when you're using like pDAI and that percent of slippage, if it's becoming an illiquid market, you can't necessarily take it to zero because you could be paying, instead of getting like a 0.1% slip on the trade, it could go 10%, 20%, 30%. So it doesn't matter that you want to. The question is, can you?
okay, well, I'll put this question to you, Bud. So think from the perspective of somebody who doesn't really care about PulseChain, somebody who's just become an overnight multi-billionaire, doesn't believe in the longevity, saw that somebody just brought in a ton of liquidity. Do you think that they're going to care about slippage when this is their one chance to make tens of millions, potentially hundreds of millions of dollars?
How many? Okay. Are people going to exit? Absolutely. Is DeFi going to work if a community doesn't stand up behind it? No. This is all for nothing if those of us that are here don't believe that this is the new decentralized financial system. So it's not just a matter of the initial funding of whoever backs the Aave comp lending pools. It's a matter of, does the community stand up, right? Do those of us that are here, as Somi has said, this is a believer's cycle. Will we, as a community, bring this idea into the world, or are we all just a bunch of greedy pigs that want to have Lambos and show off?
I like both of your opinions, but I think there is a strong community like Bud's talking about. But I think that coexistence, and that's kind of why I was trying to ask that question earlier, was that it's taking into account the bad apple, if you want to call them that, or the person that's thinking with pure self-interest and not community minded and not long term. That's kind of why I was asking these questions, because I think we do have to account for those people. I think that they were previously part of the community, as you were speaking earlier, and like we went through that shakeout, and a lot of those types of individuals are no longer part of pDAI community, at least like publicly. And now we're really, I think we're going to see a lot of people maybe come back, or maybe even new people that may not care about DeFi or cypherpunk or anything like that. So I think it's you guys are both right to me, because none of us are wrong. We're just all trying to figure this out, right?
Exactly. And I really appreciate like these spaces and like talking with Steven and podcasts. Like we can come at things from different angles, and things nobody really knows, but we're just given perspectives here. And it's like what I said earlier, why I think it's so important to have a positive message and to spread the idea of a Lodial title, and to give people that wisdom and that information, and to to be proud of them for trying to make the world a better place. Like Richard kind of introduced a lot of us to this idea, but it fails if we as a community don't get behind it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's why we're here now. Sorry, Zach.
No, yeah, you're good. I was gonna say the same thing. Like I feel like a lot of the guys that have big bags, like are pretty firm believers. Like Nine Iron. I mean, he's got like over 100 million, I bet, still. And I think he's one of the guys that are gonna be like, here for the long run. Like he's gonna be earning that yield he's talking about. Like he's gonna be leading the way in terms of like, showing the whales what to do and things like that. The smaller community obviously will, take their profits and do what they want to do, and hopefully stick around, because if this all goes the way that we think, it's just going to change a lot of things. It's going to change the way all of us are experiencing life. There's going to be new everything. I mean, new ways to earn yield, new I can't even explain all of the things, obviously, because a lot of it is just so unclear. But like if the route that we're seeing taken right now is the actual route that will be taken, I just think that just people will see that opportunity instead of like taking immediately what's there. There may be some foresight, and honestly, like taking some is fine, and I think there will be liquidity for that to happen. So I'm not really too scared about it in the run, but it's definitely something to think about, keep in mind.
Yeah, like I've decided that the most I'm ever going to take out of the system is 5% of my holdings, and the rest I'll take out in yield from liquidity pools, or once we get access to like the comp Aave pools, being able to allocate capital into that. And the reason I think like that is because it's taxed different, right? Like if I take my assets, like if I take a million pDAI and a million something else and slap it in a liquidity pool, and I bought it today, when I go to cash with that, that would get taxed at a capital gain, and the whole $1 million would be a taxable event. Where if I only pull the interest that I've gotten out of the liquidity pool, then that is taxed as a dividend, it's taxed at a lower rate, and it's only that capital that will be taxed, right? So I can enjoy all of this appreciation in my assets and never have to pay tax on them because it's an unrealized capital gain.
Right. Then we also can think about those lending protocols, right, where you can put in collateral and take a loan on it, and then you don't have to pay tax on a loan, right? That's another method that I've been hearing about. And I think a lot of people will be looking more into this stuff as things get bigger, and people need to think about these things. But yeah, when people have over $1 million, they're not going to want to have to realize those gains. Obviously that'd be a pretty hefty tax bill, but there are some methods around it, I guess.
Yeah, whether it is like, some of the stuff like that Power City put out, or even that Liquid Loans protocol, that fork of Liquidity. And those things can be spun up rather fast. Like there's a lot of people that have taken and forked that Liquidity. I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. Liquidity protocol, where you can do over collateralized lending on tokens. So, just because it doesn't exist today doesn't mean it won't exist in 5 years. Like I really think in the future, you're going to see something where you could take like an HSIT share and borrow against it, right? Like we have the smartest and the smartest tech guys with us. We have the best developers with us, and they're going to build the protocols and the systems for this community to make it all work, right? And I'm basing that on faith and belief, but I just know that these things will come to life. And then it all goes back to that thing of when you pull value out of the system, and I don't care where you place it, if you place it in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, in real estate, you are now back in a feudal system where you don't control your assets and they can all be confiscated, right? Like in America, don't pay your property tax for 3 years and see if you still own it. Like I don't care what the asset is that you think you're going to transfer into that's going to make you happy. You're giving up ownership. This is the only place in the world where you're going to maintain ownership.
Sorry, so why doesn't gold or Bitcoin have Allodial ownership? Is it because they have to be put in a trust first? I'm sorry, I don't really know too much about that, but I'm just guessing.
Well, you can with gold because you can hold gold in a safe, right? But if you own a gold certificate, right, then you have counterparty risk. You're hoping that the person that actually is storing the gold for you will give it back to you when you present them with your claim ticket. With these tokens on PulseChain, and again, I want to be really clear when I say this, it's not every single token on PulseChain. It's the ones that are immutable lock smart contracts, the ones that don't have admin keys, like pDAI, like Hex, some of the derivatives off Hex, like ICOSA or Hedron. There's some safe plays, but you have to go in and look at the code and know which assets are the safe ones. Anything on Ethereum aside from Hex can be frozen.
I did not know that. What about Monero? Do you think people will bridge into that after Peg?
Yes. Well, so some will. And I've told this story on Steven's podcast. I went to the blockchain stampede in Laramie, Wyoming in 2019, and I listened to a bunch of SEC regulators talk at the law conference. And that was during their talk, they started talking about how they were going to outlaw Tornado Cash and Monero. And I was asking questions because I come from the Richard Hart community. I probably knew more about Tornado Cash and Monero than most people in the room. And they said that they were going to make Tornado Cash illegal to use, and that's what they did. Now, because in America we have a judicial system where you have to have a victim in order to get case law. The founders of Tornado Cash were arrested. The case was adjudicated, and they won, which was fantastic for humanity that it was, because privacy is a basic human right. But in 2019, that was on their plan, was to get rid of Monero because of its privacy, right? They do not want you to have privacy. They do not want you to have ownership. And I don't even know how many people would really know how to use Monero appropriately to provide the level of privacy that they're looking for anyway.
Right. It does seem pretty complicated. I've been in crypto since like 2018.
Yeah, so, again, I just keep going back to it, man. Just recognize whatever you take out of this system, you're giving up direct ownership, right? Unless you go buy like physical gold or, I don't know, something that you can store in your house, ammo, whatever. But unless you physically possess it, you don't own it. And this is the only place in all of the crypto ethos where you will be able to directly own the tokens that are inside your wallet.
Yeah, it does make it kind of like a lot more better viable than like USDT or USDC. I don't even know why anybody would want to invest in that, to be honest with you.
No, you see constantly where they're freezing people's funds. And, man, like the SWIFT system was broken when the United States froze $300 billion of Russian assets during the start of the Ukraine war. So globally, the world recognizes now that the SWIFT system cannot be trusted. And I think this is the biggest play for PulseChain, the biggest play for the community is the promotion of a Lodial title and dollar. If we have a native stablecoin that cannot be seized and these lending protocols come online that like Comp and Aave that can produce trillions of dollars, you're going to have foreign sovereigns invest in this because there's global trade that needs to happen. And countries do not want to put capital at risk. And if they can use blockchain technology to make a trade for like oil or commodities or whatever it may be, and during that trade they have zero risk of seizure of funds, this is where we're headed, right?
I definitely agree with you. I've read the Bitcoin Standard, and I believe that book was also very prophetic in terms of government's, I guess you could say, position towards just in finances and how they've been responding to everything. That book is like at least like almost 8 years old now. So, and especially me being in Canada, like I talked about this in the Telegram group earlier today. Number one, that it's actually really advantageous that pDAI is a U.S. dollar. As Canadian dollar continues to tank, I like to call it the Canadian peso because I don't think it's going to be worth much, especially when we got the UK banker as a prime minister now. It wasn't even voted in, but I just see that there's a lot of opportunity with PulseChain. Number one, that was initially why I even invested in PulseChain, was that it was like the first like 0 point. It was like a 0 point stage. Everything else, Solana, Ethereum. I've heard of other chains like Bear. I don't really know about them too much, like Chain, other stuff. There's nothing that really stood out, and I think most people. I was lucky enough to find out about Richard Hart after the outrage marketing, but I think what you'll probably notice with the trend with Richard Hart is that you'll understand why he did it after the fact, right? Like while he's doing it, you don't necessarily know. And I think that like when he was doing the outrage marketing, a lot of people took him at face value. Same with the stupid pDAI. Same with all of his cryptic posts and everything. I think and then like even the pDAI FUD, I think all of this stuff eventually turns out in a positive. Maybe I'm just being a little rose-colored glasses right now, but I just I'm really excited about where we are in the space. The Allodial title thing, I think, is something that really should be promoted because it's something that when I was doing research about pDAI on ChatGPT and just in general, it came up quite a bit. Allodial title. But that's also why I wanted you to kind of just cover it a bit. But you do, so
Yeah, this whole like pDAI situation, like it has so much similarity to Bitcoin, right? In terms of like, you know, the government can't turn you off and things like that. A lot of the same ethos that Bitcoiners have, I feel like, you know, we have now in pDAI.
Sorry, what I was going to say was that in Canada, I don't know if you guys know that we had a freedom convoy and that the government actually shut off the bank accounts of people that were donating. I think they even like linked Bitcoin payments, any sort of payment that went to this, I guess you could say, group of people. The government like found those people. If they donated like on the, what is it, that fundraising website, they donated there and they shut down their bank account. So I read about that in the Bitcoin Standard 7 years ago, and it's actually happening in the country that I'm living in. So there's even more of a precedent and an actual reason to own Bitcoin. I'm sorry, to own pDAI now, because it's just, there really isn't a lot of options outside of like what pDAI represents. Like even like you were saying earlier, that Monero could potentially be on a list of banned tokens, right? I mean, worst case scenario is people start going to jail for owning it or something. Then what? What's the options or like other opportunities that we have to own? Because remember, their goal is to own. You're going to own nothing and enjoy it, right? Or be happier with it. So that includes every facet of your human existence. That's why everything is turning into a subscription-based model, et cetera, et cetera. Right? Even car ownership is going to turn into that. I think you can like get a subscribed Tesla at this point, right? It's available.
So I'd like to make 2 points here. You know, when you're talking about the Bitcoin Standard, and yeah, we have picked that up, the narrative of that. But the problem with Bitcoin is it's not a stable store of value. There's a lot of fluctuation, and it's hard if you're, you know, if you're a hedge fund manager or a foreign sovereign and you want to find a safe place to store value, you're not going to go to Bitcoin because of the fluctuation of the market. And I think that was the big miss for Bitcoin. And that's why, you know, it's hard to get a lot of governments to come into a space where they could potentially lose 20-30% on trades when they need it. The second point I want to make is that there's some people that believe that the US dollar could potentially go away as a reserve currency, that is something some other country is going to take over. That is never, I should say never. That is highly, highly unlikely to happen. First off, there's more liquidity in let's see, which index is it? I think it's the Dow Jones, than there is in all of Europe, right? And you're not going to replace the US dollar. It's here to stay. And with the expansion of these other CBDCs or stablecoins, that's these stablecoins coming out on Ethereum that are going to be launched by private companies. And the reason they did private companies in America is because they wanted to skirt the US Constitution. Okay. The government cannot print money or can't own a CBDC, so they're going to allow these private companies to come out with these stable coins, and those have all kinds of risks to them, right? But when they do that, when they launch these stable coins, those are going to be asset-backed stable coins that are going to be backed by U.S. Treasuries. And the U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said that he expects in a very short period of time a 10x in value in the stablecoin liquidity to go to $2 trillion. So all you're going to see as this thing builds out is more dollar value. And whether it's a major corporation or a foreign sovereign, in order to do trade, you can't store in Bitcoin because of the loss that you could potentially get by holding Bitcoin for 2 years. You know, you could see gains too, but we've all been around long enough to know that the potential for loss is there. And that is what makes pDAI so powerful, man, is you're going to have, if I'm a like an emerging market country and I want dollar exposure, I know where I can go get it without having any risk.
So I see we did have a hand up a minute ago from who is this, Mo Mindset Crypto? Did you want to chime in on anything?
Yeah, thank you very much. Give me this opportunity. I'm one of those guys who's completely confused with the FUD against pDAI. Direct question is, what role does Richard Hart have in this token? Can we get some clarity on that?
Really, maybe none. We don't know. He's denounced it on Twitter, and basically tweeted about it about 30 times, saying how there was an extractor exploiting the blockchain. But there's also a lot of coincidences and small things that point towards him having some involvement as well. So it's just hard to say.
I mean, I've kind of taken the center stage. I'm kind of more center in this affair. I don't know what's going on. I can't make heads and toes. I know there's been a Maria angle to it, and there's a claim from one party of PulseChain that it's all a scam. It's everything's being organized chaotically to the point that there isn't any great value in pDAI. However, the way I see it is anything can happen here. Even let's say there is a certain amount of FUD. Even the price goes up, let's say up to 10 cents. It's enough money for investors who bought in big bags. They can still profit from pDAI, even if it doesn't go to $1. So I don't think it's a complete loss. I think money can be made with pDAI. However, I'm not so sure about the $1. I think over time, a big possibility, maybe the next cycle, maybe after a year, there's a big possibility. And yeah, I've even included this in my oil painting as well. The Richard Hart painting I'm working at the moment. I've got the pDAI symbol in there. I still love the narrative. As you know, PulseChain is all about different narratives. It doesn't really matter to me that who's right or wrong. I'm trying to promote PulseChain. I have a BBC interview coming up in 2 weeks, and that's my way through my oil painting, trying to get attention to PulseChain.
Nice, man. That's awesome.
Hey, Mo. I love your artwork, Mo. And I want to just ask you, if you take away, so you're an artist, so if you take away all the information, because there is, I can see that there's a struggle in your mind with all the information. I'm just curious to know, what does your heart tell you about this whole story? What does your heart tell you about this narrative that's emerging on PulseChain about a $1 pDAI or our own version of some kind of a stable coin? What does your heart tell you? So if you take away all the mess of information, what do you feel about it? Just curious.
So like yourself, I'm from a background mindset. I've done a lot of stuff, with NLP. I'm a master practitioner in that and master practitioner in energy healing. So going to your heart and removing doubt. Let's say in this moment right now, I sort of separate myself from the chaotic mind. For me, the pDAI, anything's possible. Anything is possible. When I say anything is possible, it means that it still has potential. It has potential, unexpected potential that it can blow up. I love the logo pDAI, hence why we included in the Richard Hart painting. But then again, PulseChain is about narratives. Sometimes you got to have the ugly, the good. You have to intermix it. You got to have like two different parties. Sometimes that brings in more people, more eyeball, more attention. So in itself, it is a good form of advertising, I guess. So if I remove doubts, I would say anything's possible. If we get more eyeballs onto the project, I think people will just remove themselves from the Maria situation, and they'll come in. And I mean, PulseChain does need a stable coin, and why not pDAI?
Hey Mo, were you here on PulseChain when it first launched?
Yes, I was. I was here right at the beginning. I was 1 year in buying Hex before the launch of PulseChain. Then I was there when pDAI, I think it was Crypto, Khalid from Crypto. I think he mentioned this with another developer. I did actually get into it because at the time, you know, the meme coins were doing a lot of rug pulling, and then pDAI came in. And by the time I started really listening to pDAI, I felt I was too late in there, and I was already invested into 9inch, and I thought that was a safe place. So I didn't have the funds that I'm utilizing for crypto when pDAI got launched. Then of course there was other opportunities when the price went really down. I saw a bunch of videos all over the place, and I guess I could have taken action at that time. But then again, my focus was mostly on my artwork, because it takes a long time to do my artwork, literally 300 hours doing canvas, and there's not much time for me to start exploring tokens. I missed out on PTGC, missed out on pDAI, but I've remained with the core tokens. And now that, yeah,
sorry. No, I was just gonna say, do you find it like pretty coincidental that pDAI was actually the first logo on PulseX to have, or sorry, the first token on PulseX to have a logo besides the core tokens? The only other token on PulseX that had a logo was pDAI.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed it because I was so young and to the whole idea of crypto. Remember, I've not been into I never bought any tokens in my life. And just to get in to set my MetaMask up and my wallet was a big issue. So I didn't pay attention with anything apart from Hex. I didn't even pay attention to Ink. However, PulseX was one of my favorites, and PulseChain, obviously, because we use gas fees. But again, yeah, that's like an important little fact that if it was there, one of the first early logos, that in itself is saying something.
Yeah, I think so too.
I remember that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one of the first things that I noticed that like made us look more into pDAI, because at first we were buying it and we were kind of just like laughing, like, oh look, I have 1 million pDAI. We were like just making a joke about it, kind of, but then it turned into pretty serious stuff once 9iron dug into the blockchain a bit more.
My position is I'm not here to diss any token because you don't know what's going to happen. I've been to spaces here, PulseChain spaces, and they absolutely are so disrespectful. They don't like pDAI. And you know what? Quite a number of them have invested silently in the background, big bags. And it makes me wonder, why people are, attached to a certain narrative. Are people saying this because they want people to cheat their bags so that they can buy more? I don't know.
For sure, you're dealing with all sorts of levels of psychological manipulation, greed, gaslighting, everything you can name, psyops, Katie, XUSD, all sorts of shit. You get everything. So you're dealing with that.
So how does Atropa and Maria fit into this pDAI narrative.
So basically, the Atropa
Or
developer got like over 1 billion pDAI during the launch, right? They
Okay.
when they were in Amsterdam and speaking about it at the PulseChain conference, that's what they said. Basically, they had this idea that pDAI and the other copied over stablecoins should be holding their peg eventually, and he built an ecosystem to kind of support that.
Right.
Wasn't it
Okay.
like 40 billion he minted or something like that? He was like the first to scoop up a big amount of like one of the biggest bags, Maria.
I thought it was like 1 or 2 billion. I'm not sure because there was only 27 billion.
Okay,
at one time.
I could be wrong.
So really, Maria is only an investor who got in early and bought big bags, but does not have direct. She's not part of any sort of team with pDAI, the developers, etc. Is
So
that
he's
what
kind of created an ecosystem around it, but he's not the direct link.
The funny
So who's
thing
it?
is, like,
Who's the actual developer?
so the funny thing is like Maria, right? James Osborne, who is like this extensive history of being a developer and working for huge mega corporations like Terra Luna or Terra Power, Bill Gates's corporation, and NASA even. He was asked in person, whether MakerDAO was a part of this, if like the people who created DAI, had involvement in what was going on or whatever, or if he knew about MakerDAO on PulseChain having anything, if that was going to be integrated or working. And he told us that he didn't know what MakerDAO was. And so like, it was funny when they said that because like this guy's like a genius, and for him MakerDAO system or how it works and things like that. And the first thing that they do is they buy all this pDAI and set up their Atropa ecosystem for to make it a dollar stablecoin again like it was on Ethereum. It's funny that they said that, but I don't think that they had any involvement with MakerDAO. I just think maybe that they were an enthusiast, somebody that is a true DeFi believer. Obviously DAI was the biggest thing for true DeFi on Ethereum at one point, and then somebody murdered that created it. So that's exactly why this is because like literally the CIA will kill people that things like this.
So I'd like to add one more thing to when they asked him about it, and he said, "I don't know anything about MakerDAO." And one of the young men sitting there asked him, said, "Well, we look at Atropa like it's a replacement for MakerDAO." And Maria smiled really big. It was almost like he got caught if you watch his body language and his facial expression. But he was being very coy and catty with that answer.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because I was just thinking about that when Mo was asking the question. It kind of falls in line with a lot of Richard Hart's strategies. I think not disclosing all the information.
I mean, we've got that Richard Hart on stream saying that we've got somebody MakerDAO replacement for PulseChain. There's a lot of old videos that we've been referring to for years now. I mean, we're coming up on 2 years of being in pDAI now soon this summer. That's kind of crazy.
Okay.
So we got Donald, the speaker. Sorry, Mo. I want to see if Donald today. You've been up here for a minute, and I know you probably wanted to say.
Yes. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I'm a XOG for 5.5 years. Since December of 2019, I came in about 2 weeks after the initial start date because I was hoping it would go down a little, and it did. And I made a big mistake. I bought a bunch of it, but when it went up 4-to-1, I sold 90% of it. So I bought $1,000 worth, sold 90% of it for $3,600. That left me $400 worth. But in the high, that $400 worth became worth $500,000. But I had them staked, so I couldn't sell them. By the time the unstaking came around, I ended up with maybe about 10 grand profit. So, but I love Hex. I'm a Hexican all the way. I'm like you guys. I'm waiting for Richard to come alive, and I'm patiently waiting for 5.5 years now. But the reason I'm real interested in pDAI, and the reason I like pDAI is because it does have the potential of going up, faster than most. And so I've developed a process which I will start promoting, where the concept is to find a way to spend it instead of sell it. So in other words, when you buy any of the Richard Hart tokens, when you're ahead and you have a profit and you want to cash in, the very best way to cash in my opinion, is to not sell it, because when you sell it, obviously it drives the price down. So what good is it to sit there and wait for the price to go up and then drive it down by selling it? So my philosophy is to find a way to spend it. If you could spend it on eBay, that would be perfect. Well, you can't. So I'm inventing a place where you can spend it. I've got a couple of different websites. One of them is tctrademart.com and one is TCBarter.com. And there you can trade any of your Richard Hart tokens to get a token there that you can spend without any blockchain fees, and it's stable. It's worth $1. When you get it, you're going to get the value of whatever you're trading to get it, whatever the value is of pDAI that day. If you want to trade it and get TC, two things happen. Now you have no more blockchain fees because it's off the blockchain, but you can spend it. We've got Amazon, Walmart. We've got gift cards at about 100 different places that you can buy with your TC. You could technically buy it directly with the pDAI. I mean, obviously, you don't go into Walmart and spend pDAI or to spend Hex. You go to tcbarter.com and you trade your profits, whatever you're ahead on pDAI, and get a gift card good at Walmart, good at Amazon. In front of me, I have about 100 different gift cards that are available right now in exchange for your pDAI. So instead of selling your profits, you can go to either of those websites and arrange to just spend them. When you spend it, it doesn't affect the price of it at all, because you're not selling it. You're just transferring it from your left hand to your right hand. In other words, transferring it from one account to another. You're transferring it from your account to the seller's account. That's not a sale. It's not going to drive the price down. It's not going to affect liquidity. It doesn't require any liquidity. It doesn't matter how much liquidity is there for pDAI. What matters is that a certain amount of the community decide to hold on to it and never spend it, but instead sell it. Excuse me, never sell it, but instead spend it. I got it backwards. So, and I encourage you and all of you to make a website where people can spend it. I encourage you and all of you to run over to one of those websites and place a free listing. There's no charge for any of this. There's no transfer fees. There's no advertising fees. It's completely free. I'm just trying to support pDAI and all the Richard Hart tokens, giving people a way to spend them instead of selling them. When you spend it and you get an Amazon card or you get a Walmart card, or in front of me, I've got Uber Eats that you can get. You can get Top Golf, Seas Candy, Megaplex Theaters, Dave and Buster's, Cinemark Theaters, Subway Sandwiches nationwide, Tucano's Grill, Olive Garden. There's like 100 different restaurant chains. You can use Uber Eats and have the food delivered to you. You can use DoorDash, and you can buy all of that with your pDAI. So why sell the pDAI and then go call up DoorDash? Why not just keep the pDAI, don't sell it, and trade it to get a gift card that's good at DoorDash or Uber Eats or Amazon? Or we've got grocery stores. I'm not sure how far and wide this particular grocery store is, but it's called Harmon's Grocery. There may be one near you. I don't know. We've got IHOP gift cards available. Cheesecake Factory, Chili's, Red Lobster, Panera Bread, McDonald's, Wendy's, Taco Bell, Burger King, Panda Express, and so on and so on. So my mission is to help people learn to spend their profits instead of selling their profits. When we sell, the rest of the tokens that you didn't sell just went down in value. So you might sell $1,000 worth because you need a little money, but now your portfolio is down $2,000 because not only did you take out 1,000, but the value went down because you sold. The only thing that makes crypto go up or down is buying or selling. So I say, let's buy and not sell, and let's use our profits to spend. That's my philosophy.
Could you give that website one more time, please?
Yeah, TC Trade Mart, like a mart, like a Mart, M-A-R-T, tctrademart.com, and also tcbarter.com. Both websites are free. You can put a listing there. You can say, I have pDAI, what do you got? I have Hex, what do you got? I have, I want to go on vacation, and I'll pay you with pDAI. So that's the philosophy. Let's change it so that instead of dumping, we just spend it. And when you spend it, it doesn't make the price go down at all.
That's a really good, it's the first I'm hearing of it, but it's this kind of community effort that's going to make DeFi work. Like, good job, dude. I'll check it out and I'll try to use it.
Perfect. We have a YouTube channel also. It's tctrademart.com. Again, it's M-A-R-T, tctrademart.com. And you spell out the D-O-T-C-O-M on YouTube. So tctrademart, D-O-T-C-O-M. That's the YouTube channel. It's just new. It's, very few listeners so far. We're just starting, and we'd love to have you on board. We do have a token that we're promoting on PulseChain also. And our nickname for it is the Green Team, because we've got a team of people that watch it, and whenever it's red, they buy it and keep it green. Our goal is to have it go up an average of 2% a day. Of course, with the market down.
Sorry, Donald. I mean, this is our pDAI space. I appreciate what you do and the website you built and everything, but they want to market other tokens on the space right now. Steven, what's going on, bud? You got your hand up.
Oh, I just wanted to ask Donald, or first of all, Donald, awesome idea. I'm actually going to send you a follow, and I'd really like to connect with you. I've got a YouTube channel as well, so if you ever want to have a chat about your concept on my show, I'd love to hear that, because I think that, just like Bud, I echo the sentiment that if this is going to be really a truly decentralized financial system where we're going to actually be able to use the pDAI in meaningful ways, we need things like this. So I think that it's a brilliant idea, but I'm curious to know, so obviously you're not selling the asset, but how then does the asset, so like how is one getting, say, a Walmart card by trading their pDAI for it? So obviously then the pDAI would get sold on your end into US dollar value, which then gets purchased, sold into the Walmart card. How does that process work?
No, that's the difference. As you know, there's crypto-related debit cards. Well, a crypto-related debit card is selling it, because when they pay Walmart, they sell the crypto on the debit card and pay Walmart cash. All of these gift cards that we offer are not requiring your pDAI to be sold ever. It goes into inventory in the TC store, and when somebody wants to go the other way and they want to trade auto repairs to earn some pDAI, they can do it. If they want to trade gift cards in their restaurant and get pDAI, they can do it. So the pDAI doesn't get sold. It goes into inventory, and it's available to go the other way. So, as I said, the website is called TCBarter. So obviously there's dentists that are willing to earn pDAI by fixing your teeth. There's restaurants that are willing to earn pDAI directly by having you eat there. But that's few and far between. Mainly, really, you have to go to the TC store at tcbarter.com and trade your pDAI to get a gift card that's good at Amazon. And Amazon never gets the pDAI. The TC store gets the pDAI, and the pDAI goes into inventory at the TC store. It doesn't get sold. But when somebody has something and they want pDAI and they have TC credits, or they have whatever they do, whether it's auto repairs or dental work or house painting or whatever, and they want to earn pDAI, then that's where that goes. And again, when they get it, it's still not being sold. It's just transferred from the TC store to their account. So it never, ever gets sold. It never, ever hurts the price.
No, interesting concept, really. I'm sure we'll have to check that out, actually.
Yeah, the way you're going to find that there's very few opportunities yet because we're new, other than dealing with the TC store itself. All these things that I read off to you are inventory in the TC store. So realistically, at first, a lot of your spending will be directly with the TC store, but we're trying to promote the idea of other people accepting your pDAI also, such as the dentist, the auto repair place, etc. And if you pay to get your car fixed with pDAI, you're not selling it. You're transferring it to his account, and that's not a sale. And when he spends it, he's not selling it. He's getting his teeth fixed. And when somebody wants to go back the other way, they have TC and they want pDAI. That's also not selling either one. It's just another transfer from one account to another. That's it.
Brilliant, Donald. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for creating that.
My pleasure. It's new, so you haven't heard about it yet, but I hope you will. You'll see that those websites aren't very active yet, but you got to start somewhere. TCBarter.com and TCTradeMart.com. But they're free. We're not charging anything for this.
Hey, Steve, what about the
I'm just
whole Better Bank situation? Well, have you looked into that at all?
Better Bank, yeah. So Better Bank that's Nicky. So I had him on my channel a couple of times. So he's created a protocol that will use pDAI as collateral. So that's something that's very positive for the ecosystem. So yeah, that's what I know about it. Off the top of my head, it's a fork of Aave, I believe. So Aave, I think Aave v3. So there's like I'd have to go back and relook at the stream, but there's a lot of really good ideas there that basically support the price of pDAI and protect the price of pDAI. So it becomes another protocol where instead of selling your asset, you're using it as collateral. So you can take loans and
is this
generate yields.
That's going to be like safe is a relative term, I guess, but like nobody has keys to it or something. Is it immutable?
That's a good question. These things I'm not too sure about, I'm sorry to say. Like I said, I've had a couple of conversations with him, but I would need to ask him those questions again. I don't recall if I asked those questions about the admin keys.
Gotcha. And I'm just like looking over my notes here because I had some jotted down that I wanted to talk about on space. I wanted to talk about the recent RH post about like and having the word like unsuck be a part of that. Because when I think I read that post, a few minutes of him posting it, because I have like notifications on for Rich. And obviously like I'm not like a MakerDAO whiz or any kind of dev or anything like that, so I didn't really realize that that's unsuck meant something. So I didn't obviously didn't of it until I saw Decentralized me post about it. But yeah, honestly, that just like caught me by surprise. Like I was like, it's just another coincidence on top of the many. But I just wanted to hear you guys' opinions on that.
Well, there's been several coincidences from what I've seen. Apologize if I get the Twitter handle wrong. I think it's like Dirty Crypto put up something about the misspelling of a word that Richard did, and then do you remember what that was, Zach?
Yeah, OKX made a post like today or yesterday or something like that.
Right.
About, I forget the word. So it's like, here I made a post about it. Declared, and he spelled it Delcared.
Yeah, so you're seeing a lot of that, and there's signaling kind of like the Hyperloop from Binance and the Pulse and the from Binance and the signaling is out there. And if you look at CZ from Binance and the fact that he went to jail, for a while. You know, I think there could be some collaboration there. I have no way to prove it, but just observing the world pass me by, I feel like between these exchanges and between, you know, the Richard is communicating in a way now that he used to a long time ago. And I do remember when he came on and said, I don't talk in riddles, what I say is what I mean. No, dude, you've talked in riddles the whole time. And he's now back to that, is what I believe.
Yeah, I just think his Twitter is all lies. Like he just doesn't never, like it's all like misdirections and weird stuff going on. Honestly, but yeah, the unsuck thing, it really caught me by surprise. Like I had no like, because he used the word a couple times in that post, and it's just like a weird word to use, and you know it's relative to MakerDAO. Like it's just like how many more things are there going to be? You know,
I think we'll just continue to see things like this as we progress forward. And Stephen likes to use AI to answer questions. Well, I think Richard uses numerology for dates and signaling, and you know, like the hex is like in astrology is related to Saturn, and so just playing, I got on Grok and I asked it to pull all the information it could on Richard, Hart, and to use numerology and astrology, and to give me any dates that would be significant in July. And it went through a whole diatribe, gave me a bunch of information, and July 7th and July 9th seemed to stick out as far as significant dates in regards to that. And is that voodoo witch magic? Shit, man, I don't know. But it doesn't matter what I think. What matters is how that individual perceives the world. And if somebody is using numerology to, you know, for points, it doesn't matter how I feel. It matters. If I'm going to try to be in a predictive mode, I have to use that into the equation to predict a potential move on that day.
Yeah, and to add to that, I had a friend, well, not a friend, but basically a kind of a PulseChain community person. I'm pretty sure he's like behind the Donald Trump PulseChain, but he told me that he told me that the hex is actually has the numerological sigil of 8 and like the date or something, and like you were saying, hex has to do with Saturn. 8 also has to do with Saturn as well. Just wanted to add that because with 8 has to do with wealth and numerology.
It's a really great point.
hey, so I want you guys to take a look at the post that I just shared up at the top from Peplord. So he posted a screenshot of the PulseChain developer Breetep speaking about the 80,000 Bitcoin that was just being moved basically, and people are, you know, questioning about whether it's Richard or not or whatever. And it's just curious to see that the PulseChain dev, you know, comes out commenting about this situation, and you know, says that, you know, these are exciting times basically, you know, possibly hinting at, you know, maybe this is RH. What do you guys think?
Well, I brought it up earlier. Was it today that it happened? The move, the Bitcoin move?
Yesterday, I think, yeah.
Was it Independence Day that it moved?
Yeah, it was on the 4th for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just too wild. And then now Breetep is commenting about it. It's just like, oh man.
It seems like a lot of signaling to me.
But did you get any elaboration on the significance behind July 7th and 9th in regards to Richard Hart, and that's like it being attached to astrology. Did it tell you any specific like new moon or anything along those lines?
The basis of it was starting anew, and I thought that was rather significant. That's what it came down to, was the start of something new, the start of a new system, was how Grok broke that down for me.
Okay. Yeah, because like sometimes you can see certain market moves on new moons. There's another YouTuber that actually, I forgot his name because my YouTube was deleted a couple months ago, so I had to start a fresh one. But basically, he would combine crypto market moves with basically using astrology. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, like Richard Hart, like it'd be better if you think the opposite of what he says. So if he says it's stupid pDAI, if he says he doesn't believe in numerology or whatever, I would say to flip that and take it on the opposite meaning, because there's just too much like, even the idea of the science of a cult just means hidden knowledge, right? So a lot of what we're doing and trying to discover what he's saying in his cryptic messages or the cryptic messages on the blockchain, that is a form of a cult, because it's technically not a cult, but a cult, meaning that it's just a form of a knowledge that's not common. So basically, well, we're discovering that, and he's kind of leading us, you know. I'm not going to go and say like, oh, people are devil worshippers. I don't believe in that. I mean, they exist, but I don't believe that he's one. So like, I think that all of us at PulseChain, if we collectively start thinking in terms of numerology and dates, and maybe you don't have to be a numerologist per se, but just having a better grasp of that understanding, and then you'll have like just you won't be shaken up by these markets as much, and you'll see that a lot of these uptrends and downtrends are energetically stabilized. I don't want to sound too metaphysical, but you'll see the correlation a lot more once you're looking at it through those lenses. You know what I mean? The codified numerological Chinese astrology, like GG33, a lot of good information that can still be applied to PulseChain, because it's relevant, because it's a global phenomenon. It's like universal energy, right? But again, I don't want to go too far off, but just want to throw that out there.
Well, I think it's important to remember as well, you know, Richard was out screaming that blockchain is speech, right? And so then we started looking into the blockchain, and we were seeing messaging, and, you know, Stephen even came up with, like, he was going through and reading messages, which was great work, right? And what's interesting about that is, as we're all learning through DBank how to start going through and collecting information, isn't it just a coincidence how DBank goes offline and we lose that access as all of these moves start being made and funds start being distributed? And then, you know, I think it was Dirty Crypto that put out that information about how the 5996 wallet, he showed how there was interaction between that and a PulseChain Pioneer wallet, and then there was trades, and there was, and he was able to prove through the blockchain that the 5996 wallet was actually one of the PulseChain pioneers. It wasn't a hacker. So there is obfuscation, there's misleading, and, you know, you have to cipher through it. And I don't think one person has enough hours in the day, but like, that's what's so great about this community, man, is the people that put in the work, that do the digging, and like try to share it and are willing to be wrong as they do it. Like, that's why we're all still here.
Yeah, it's definitely a community effort. Like even Zach putting together this spaces, and then that kind of just turns the wheel again for us to all figure out. Like I was on the Telegram chat today, and I learned about I forget what it's called, but I shared the link in the chat. But it's like an open source wallet, because people are trying to help each other figure out how to protect their privacy, like you were saying earlier, how to move with these transactions and this pDAI in a more secure way, especially as, like, people are getting wallet drained, people are getting hacked, governments after, there's so many different variables on that people are at pretty much after that value. So we all have to collectively, just like internet money too, like they came out, I've been using their wallet ever since Rabby banned PulseChain, and I've actually enjoyed it more than ever using Rabby. I use it all the time, so and that's a community push envelope. But I think that's the power in PulseChain, is that, I'm from Canada, Coexist is from Australia, Zach, we don't know where he is right now in the world, you know what I mean? But we're all, I don't, at least. So, we're all everywhere, but yeah, we can all come together on like this idea. And I wanted to share a quote, so I'm going to paraphrase it, but it was like, there's nothing that can stop an idea whose time has come. And I really believe that that's kind of what we're edging on with pDAI, is that we're seeing the fulfillment of the idea, and we're also seeing the people that stuck to the idea versus the people that were like, no, I'm going to go on pump tires and get pump tires bear and make kill die or whatever Maddie made a couple months back. Like, just insane crap.
Also, as a word of caution here, and I was in crypto in the ICO phase. I was in it before it started. And in every bull market, there's a lot of people that bring stuff to market that's absolute garbage. And it is your responsibility to look into every single token that you'll potentially invest in, because 95% of them are junk. So, I appreciate people trying to build stuff and do new things and bring things to the community, but you almost have to go through your own auditing. You need to bring it to the table before you present it. And I encourage every single person that listens to this to, when you hear something new, and I don't know how active they are anymore, but used to, you could put something into the Pulse Police on Telegram, and they would look at it and see if there was any admin keys or red flags, reasons to stay away from it. And we need something like that, because there's going to be grifters. There's going to be, not everybody who makes something is a grifter. I'm not trying to assign all of that to every person who's trying to add value. But, if you've been here and, you've survived this, don't try to be first in a new token. Do your research, check it out, and you're 100% responsible for anything that you get into.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, I mean, that's super important right now. I mean, I know myself, I got fucked last summer, a year ago. I joined, I was on playing around on Ethereum, and I was joining a whale chat room. Somebody posted a link to join a whale chat, and I connected my wallet to this thing that was supposed to just read my read how much I had or whatever. And I connected to it, and it took what I had. So you got to be really careful. I mean, these are really critical moments in that right now, especially. I mean, a year ago, it's I had time to build back my stack a bit, but times like now, I mean, especially now, I'm being very, very careful, using a VPN. I travel for work, so I have to be in hotels a lot, and so I have to make sure I'm connected to a VPN first, because there's people that can freaking come in and take over the Wi-Fi or make you connect to a fake one. Yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happening out there.
Yeah, especially if we get to a point of like a 1 cent, 10 cent, 50 cent peg, I think it's gonna ramp up. Like I'm already starting to get a lot of spam from the pDAI group. Like people just asking me, "What do you think of pDAI?" And automatically, you know, it's a spam account. But people are like open and willing to drain you at any point. I think I've lost a lot of money in crypto from being scammed. So I think at this point, I'm pretty good at not clicking that link that will drain my wallet. But again, it can happen to the best of us. It can happen to any of us. So always like cross your T's, dot your I's, double check, triple, quadruple check before you make a payment or log your MetaMask or any of your crypto wallets onto the internet. Use a VPN, making transactions, cover your tracks. Because like, especially with this momentum,
I thought it was crazy that that guy that was moving all those big loads of BTC, like 10,000 at a time, was like doing it just like all in one Swift transaction with no test transactions or anything. Just scary.
That should tell you the person doing it has a lot of experience transferring funds, right? So that wasn't just somebody new on the blockchain. That's somebody who has done thousands of transactions.
Yeah, because imagine like somebody who had bought in a bunch of back then, and then like, what if they like lost their computer or whatever, and just like after this amount of time, they like, I couldn't, if I hadn't been using it or touching it, or like, you know, like I've just been worried and trying to find it the whole time, like I would not remember how to even, like, I mean, how to access it, really, how to trade it, transfer it. Like, it's Bitcoin is different obviously than what we use and what Ethereum is. Yeah, people may not even, like, a person, if they just bought it and forgot about it that long, they may not have even remembered how to transfer it anywhere. So I mean, obviously, or like you said, I mean, it's an expert, you know, this is somebody that's been cautiously watching this happen.
Well, sure. And if for a wallet that hasn't moved in 10 years, man, there's not one bit of the technology today that's similar to what it was 10 years ago, right? So whoever held that Bitcoin has been actively using these transfer methods, and there's maybe 10 people I could name off the top of my head in the entirety of the world who have been around that long and are still participating, and Richard's one of them, right? Like Roger Ver would be one. You know, it's a very short list. And hell, even for myself, if I have to pay somebody with Cash App, I always just send a $1 test to make sure before I pay the bill. You know, like you type one thing wrong, man, you're not getting it back. But this person's just sending 10,000 Bitcoin. Like, yeah, it's somebody who is beyond expert level to have that level of comfort.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, to sit on that for.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing, like to not touch that Bitcoin, but I still think that Richard said that the PulseChain was minted into the Bitcoin was minted into PulseChain. I'm gonna try to pull that up and show you guys. I literally watched it before I hopped on this
somebody
call.
just sent it to me. They said, Zach, this is it, bro. Watch it and tell the people in the space he has 300,000 BTC. So basically what he's saying is he minted it for free, like on like I have
Original minter.
Minted it for free in the contract, he said. So I think he's like, he minted that from the Bitcoin contract, maybe.
Speaking of Bitcoin, how does PWBTC play into the narrative of pDAI? Because I the min keys, a lot of speculation. But I feel like they're very interplayed, and I actually swung trade a lot of my PWBTC into pDAI when it was the ratio was like 1 to 350,000, I think.
I would say that the significance of PWBTC is first off, it's name brand, right? So people will recognize that. They won't know that it's, as people come in, they won't know that it's not actually the wrapped version of Bitcoin. You know, there's only, I think it's 156,000 and, you know, plus or minus total PWBTC on PulseChain, and that's all there ever will be. So having a very low supply, being how it's in the Atropa liquidity web, being how it has name brand, I think when there is speculation that comes into the chain, I think you could see if pDAI, when pDAI gets to $1, not if, but when, you'll see that ratio go even with what Bitcoin is to the US dollar. But then when there's a discovery that there's only 156,000 of them, I think it could go well beyond that ratio.
Right.
Now, here's speculation. Do you DC will assist the pegging of pDAI in any form, or absolutely none?
So Maria was saying in one of the chats that they think that WBTC would get to parity before DAI does, and that once the bridge between Bitcoin and PulseChain goes live, then big things would occur. So, I mean, I'm speculating here, but in the future, there should be some type of direct Bitcoin to PulseChain bridge. I think that's what they were mentioning.
Okay. Yeah, I like PulseChain because we speculate a lot. But in my opinion, I mean, there's a lot of people that complain on this chain and say Richard failed them or whatever. But I noticed from my experience in crypto in general that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors in regards to what the future is going to hold with certain projects. You know, they'll say, "Oh, we're working with MasterCard, or we're working with a big company or whatever." XRP's always got a new pony coming out of its rabbit hat, but absolutely nothing on the chart. Whereas with PulseChain, it's a lot more speculation. You really don't know what is going to happen. Like tomorrow, pDAI could go to zero. This whole thing could just be, But then there's the other flip side of that where it doesn't. I haven't seen opportunity like this since ICO days, like Bud was talking about. Yeah. I think anybody that's listening, you guys should really try to hop on. Sorry.
Yeah, if anybody else wants to come up and speak, to request the mic.
As far as the idea that pDAI can go to zero, that would mean that everybody would have to exit, and I won't. I absolutely won't. I'll ride it all the way to the bottom, and I want this, and I believe in being able to manifest the reality in which I live in. And if there's enough of us that put conscious effort to something, we will manifest this reality. And I chose to become a public person in this space because I want people to not be scared. I want you to know that there's someone else who's crazier than you are, who's willing to go all the way to the bottom and never exit. So it's an absolute impossibility because I'm not leaving for it to go to zero.
I love your attitude. I don't think I'll leave either. I'm just saying, I'm paraphrasing Richard Hart, but what did he say with high volatility, high returns, or something like that? Or that's the price you pay for extreme gains is extreme volatility, something like that.
Yeah, that's that.
So
Yeah.
I expect tomorrow we could double. We could be at a set tomorrow as well, right? Like
I thought, Oh,
Yep, I think we did. That's all right.
yeah. I just think it's important to give the community the information that every single one of you matters. And we're trying to build a better world. We're trying to build a better place. We're trying to bring natural law back into order here. A man has a right to life, liberty, and property, right? And no government should be able to take our assets from us just because they will it into existence. I choose to push back. And I'm proud of the people that are fighting this fight with us. And I'm going to manifest this, man. I'm not leaving. I'm here. And before I'm dead, this will be the reality.
I'm right there with you, bud. Right there with you. I feel like, yeah, just like this, the whole, I can't see any other reality for PulseChain, honestly. It's like, that's how ingrained it is in my mind. It's like, I just don't see any other purpose. Like, why? Like, why build PulseChain? It's like, the only idea I can come up with is for us to have sovereignty, right? I mean, otherwise, like, why not just use any other blockchain?
We're on the right side of history here, man. You know, like if you've seen any of the streams that I've done with Steven, in the background, you see a portrait of George Washington on my wall. You see an old double barrel above my door, right? Like, and I think of all of us that are here in this fight, man. We are the founding fathers of a better world, of a more fair, balanced world that is gonna bring the world back into harmony. And I don't say that lightly. I honestly believe all of that to my core.
I think we're all on the same vibe. That's why, like Zach was saying, sovereignty is important, and I'm pretty sure behind the scenes we all share very similar values, which is why we all have stuck to this idea, regardless of how bad the chart was, and all the psyops, and all the community rejection and everything. So I agree with Bud. Like, we're definitely on the right side of history, and yeah, we need to push back against forces that wish to limit and restrict what is automatically supposed to be there. You know, you don't look at a squirrel and say, the squirrel's not asking if, oh, my rights are being abused. Can I have a nut? You know what I mean? It's just going to get the nut. You know what I mean? It's going there and it gets it, and there's no middleman. And I think that's what Richard Hart was always telling us, not to suck middleman D. Make sure to make them get out of our face. Right?
No, it's
I
very
love
true.
the community.
It is very true. I just shared, so Steve, you just messaged me this post or whatever, but I did share it to the nest here for everybody. The Universal Declaration of Digital Sovereignty. I'm going to have to get into this. What is it, Steve?
Somebody sent it on one of my posts. I've been just trying to find it on Google, but you can see that it was written on Independence Day. So just, what's that, 1 or 2 days ago for America? Because you guys are back in time. So yeah, it was written on released on Independence Day. I've just been trying to find it, but yeah, I wanted to just share that because I think it's going to be relevant to what we're discussing, and just putting it there for the people in this conversation to also try and find. So if anyone can actually find it and wants to share the link, please DM me, because just a simple Google search didn't work. So I definitely want to find it. And I messaged the person who shared it. But in any case, whatever the ideas are there, it's just about disseminating those ideas to an audience that's probably going to receive it well.
Yeah, of course, Google didn't want to show us.
They don't want to see us shine. Too bad. We're going to shine anyway.
That's right. Steven's light is so bright, it's going to shine on all of us.
Yeah, what happened to the Vietnamese hacker? That's what I want. Where'd he go?
His gong fell off.
His tongue fell off.
No, I mean, wouldn't it be crazy just to see like that same wallet 5996 just start bridging back in, just like aping into tokens?
Yeah, I just love the idea of a censorship resistant coin. Especially, I don't know, like Australia. I feel like Australia is the only country that when COVID hit got some similar vibes to Canada. That's like Australians. I think that's why you guys like pDAI so much.
Steven, you need to leave Australia, bro. I feel so bad for you, man. It's like the most cucked country.
No, I mean, that's why I feel so called to here. So, you know, oh boy, you know, I've had some wildly amazing enlightenments that I've seen, visions of the future. And Australia, although we are wildly conservative and we're just a bunch of massive cucks when it comes to like democratic leadership, and we basically just lick America's ass in everything, and we're just a bunch of soft cocks. We also have the potential, based on our economic standing, our general welfare as a society, our education system, our religious and secular beliefs, we're basically our resources, the wealth, just everything is so primed as a system to take on this new financial system and be an innovator and a leader in it. But instead of being an innovator and a leader, we're always behind, because that's just our nature. We're very conservative in everything for some reason, because it's part of our I mean, I shouldn't criticize Australia for licking America's ass. It's part of our strategy of survival, really, because we're a small nation. We have to suck up to the biggest players in order to stay alive. So there's relevancy to that. But because of if you put all our systems together and the scale of our country as well, to think of decentralized finance and these kinds of systems being widely adopted in a place like America, there's going to be a lot of friction because of the behemoth of the centralized system there. Australia also has a centralized system, but just all these factors combined make us, in my opinion, a very good nation to implement these ideas. So I want to be at the forefront of that. I really want to be at the forefront of that. So, you know, this charity that we've been really putting our energy into recently, we really want to be leaders for the world and show the world how this can be possible. And I just think that it's very possible in Australia. So I won't be leaving Australia, certainly not for the short term, because I want to actually implement the change. Because, yeah, I mean, we've gotten really bad as well. I mean, you have banks that all the 4 major banks in Australia, they pretty much have, under the guise of protecting against scams, stopped people from transferring money to and from centralized exchanges. This is a big problem. $10,000 you're only allowed to do a month, which, you know, what right do they have to do that? And it's under the guise of protection of scams. But obviously, you know, anyone who's got half a brain knows that it's got really nothing to do with scam prevention, and really about trying to put the brakes on this system from exploding away, because Australians also have a very high risk appetite. So I think, yeah, I'm in it for the long run here, boys. So I'm going to be at the forefront of this in Australia. So don't you worry about that. And this is all just as important to me as it is to Americans. I mean, we don't have the history of independence in the same way as America. Like, we're still attached to the crown, so, which is kind of a pity. But yeah, we're all in this together, fam.
Yeah, no, I really pray for Australia's future. I do. United States as well, honestly, but with pDAI, hopefully it can save us all, you know, keep us free in a sense, at least.
The cryptocurrency community in Australia as well, Zach, it's actually quite strong. And I don't know what the percentage would be of users to population, but I would imagine the percentage is probably in the top 3 in the world.
Oh,
and I'm pretty sure I've seen that we're in the top 3 in the world.
For the ratio of like people to people in crypto, I would say it's probably like one of the highest. I would
Absolutely.
say. Like, you know, when I was dabbling around on Solana, there was so many Australians, a lot. for sure. Because I was in a lot of terms and then voice chats and stuff like that. I mean, and they were not the minority for sure.
Absolutely. So again, that's just another factor which gives me the conviction that we can be a leader, but we need to be able to set up systems where people can adopt safely. And this is where I believe PulseChain is really at the forefront of that. So it's going to be hard to navigate the perspective of promoting a system like PulseChain and pDAI without shilling it to the rest of the community, because obviously that's been the whole game in cryptocurrency from day one. Every influencer really just shills their bags, and that's something that I've been very delicate about on my channel, of trying not to come across as shilling a bag and trying to come across as someone who's actually trying to promote something that's beneficial for everyone. So
yeah, it's so hard though. I know I saw your post about like, how people feel like you're biased, but you really try to be unbiased. But it's like, I feel like that's just how everybody sees people on YouTube. It's like you're going to talk about
absolutely
bags that you have. Like you're not going to talk about things that you don't like, and the things you don't like are the things you don't have. So it's like it's just how it works.
Absolutely, it's inevitable. But I do think we do need, in order for a movement to occur, we need to actually start something to generate that. So we're not just going to sit back. I'm part of not just sitting back and waiting for something to happen. That's not my style. I want to make something happen. So that's what we're doing now. So yeah, watch this space, I guess I would say. Dragon got his hand up.
You're making a little in-person group in Australia or something, like to meet up IRL for crypto?
Correct. So basically, so Jimmy, there's a guy called Jimmy. So he's been thinking about creating a charity for a long time, probably for the last 3 years, and he's been mining Bitcoin. I won't say too much on his behalf, but he's basically all about this ethos of sovereignty, independence, decentralized finance, and education. So he's been thinking about this for a while, and then obviously Richard now has put out this post about the charity, and so it just kind of aligned with the fact that he was trying to do this. So now it's really given us the momentum to push forward with it. And it's something that I've also been thinking about, not necessarily starting a charity, but I'll put my energy behind something like that, which I see as developing this idea in Australia. So we're actually having a meetup today. So I'll be leaving in probably about half an hour or so, but this is going to be a meeting that we're going to have to basically put our brains together about how we're going to put this charity together, how we're going to build it sustainably for the future. And then we're going to start having meetups and educational events all around Australia. So today is going to be the second one. Jimmy went to Melbourne the other day, and today is the second one in Brisbane. So yeah, we're continuing with the momentum. So I'm personally very excited. So
nice, man. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So Dragon, what's going on, man? You got your hand up? You speak.
Oh yes. Hello. Can you hear me well?
Yep. You sound good.
Nice. Yes. I came here into the space, obviously, because of the topics that you like to talk. But I have a general question, because I know that you have more knowledge in that topic, and I'm not the expert. And also I want to share like a little bit of a theory, and I wanted to know if you will agree with my theory. It will take me like 1 minute to tell you. Is this? I think that the market in general, we are going to revisit the lower lows from the last year in general in the core coins. And what I do think that the Richard Hart is holding like okay, the other others that hold all that Ethereum is like a reserve, and the guy that is holding that, maybe Richard Hart, who knows, or maybe a group of people, they were so visionary because he or they got a lot of Ethereum. We at the top 3 right now or something like that. So I think that after approaching the lower lows, we're going to even dip a little bit, and then maybe it's an option that Richard Hart or an entity, or who knows, will use that Ethereum, but I think that he will like to maybe to print pDAI or another stablecoin, and that will be like a big rocket, and he will also use the fuel from the general market. So in that case, we will start doing a lot of excess, and also he will start to put again the farms with all the P pairs, you know. He will change the emissions of the ink reward token to incentive the people to make the pair. So he will apply on the Richard Hart law. You know, that pair togethers that look like twins, they go up and down together. So he will try to move as much money from the Ethereum to come over here. So we will be like a fucking big reserve printing pDAI or maybe some stable, I don't know, and moon shooting this with those strategies. That's
I think you're not far off the mark, really, with a lot of the things you said. Obviously that is a big Ethereum treasury we have over there. I think it'll be used in some element. I know that some of the money has come in to pump the chain at certain points. I'm sure, if it all goes the way we were thinking, and if Richard is a part of this whole thing, then maybe some of it could be used to back pDAI and moonshot us up there, like you just said. I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Can I ask about that? So in probably more towards Bud, and in terms of the Genius Act, so I know that you're probably more well-versed on the Genius Act, Bud, but in terms of, let's just say the OA comes in, who we don't know who the OA is, comes in and then collateralizes everything, and it's perceived as this individual entity that's collateralizing everything. How does that look in regards to the Genius Act? How does that look in regards to in regards to the Genius Act?
So the Genius Act is still being revised, and the last version of it that I read, it was going to work on chains that fell under the purview of the SEC is first. After that Judge Layman ruling, PulseChain does not. The second part of that is the collateralization. There will, inside the Genius Act, and I don't know if this is going to stay or not, but all of the collateral was going to have to be U.S. Treasuries. They weren't going to allow for crypto-backed stablecoins or algorithmic stablecoins. So the fact that PulseChain fell outside of it, outside of the purview of the SEC, now we're going to be a stablecoin that does not fall inside of the of that Genius stablecoin legislation. What they do over on Ethereum, and for a long time people have talked about, well, Richard's going to do this and he's going to send money here and he's going to do XYZ. I still think that Richard has identified some of the major bag holders in what you'd call the OG community as bad actors. And if he is to push a large chunk of value into the core coins, guaranteed that value will exit. And I don't think he'll do that. This is just my own idea. I think he is somewhat, but some ways, shape, or form behind the Aave and the comp protocols and the reworking of the MakerDAO. I think he's going to. We need a stable coin. I think that's where the value is going to go. And like I said earlier, I think pDAI goes. I think Atropa goes next. I don't think the cores will go much. I think people will get butthurt and pissed, and they'll rage quit the system, and I think that's a good thing. And if you look at what he did with Hex, I think he identified the fact that too many people figured out how to game the system by doing these short-term rolling stakes and extracting value and taking profit, where like these people are a cancer. And I hate to say ugly shit, man. I don't want to do it, but I gotta speak the truth as I see it. So I really feel like the core coins, while they'll see an increase from some speculation, I don't know how much value Richard will put behind them initially. I think he'll let there be a great big shakeout. And also, by having a low pulse price, you're going to have low gas fees, right? So if we bring people over into this system and into this chain, and they start transacting with this decentralized stablecoin, and Pulse doesn't carry a ton of value as far as its US dollar value, then all those transactions will be cheap. So we'll outcompete that way.
So even on that, and this is part of why this recent unlock of the claim function has been something that I've been extremely excited about, because even when I was going through ChatGPT and investigating this idea through the concept of the Genius Act, because it's still under review, they might end up making it that any protocol that, like for example, Maker, yeah, okay, it doesn't fall under the purview at the moment, but they might end up rewriting it in a way that's like, okay, anything that says something is equal to $1, it now falls under our whatever jurisdiction of the Genius Act. So then what if this process with these minters and the burning, minting and sacrificing and claiming makes it something that stays at $1 through belief? And I know that this is like a crazy idea, and I know it's like kind of wild, but it eliminates every single kind of risk in my mind that there could possibly be with the Genius Act, because we're not, it's a stable coin only because we believe it's a stable coin, and we're the ones that are holding it there, the entire community. So that's where this idea is like, that's epic. That's epic. It makes the pathway to get to there not as clear as a Hyperloop and a couple of billionaires coming along and pegging it to $1 in one day. It makes it a bit more long term. Long term doesn't necessarily mean 5 or 10 years. It just means it might take 6 months or a year or 2 years, and it builds up slowly and gradually over time. But my excitement around that concept is huge because of what that also means, what I thought it also meant for the Genius Act.
Yeah, I watched your videos on that, and I thought you did a great job explaining that, how you can, I think it was with DeFi Pulse Pro. I think I'm getting that right. About how.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those were really great, and I see that there, and good luck predicting what the legislatures will do. I think the important thing that the regulators are looking at, okay, is I'll be as concise as I can as I do this, so I don't bore people and waste time, and I'll get it done really quick. All right, so you have to think in terms of global macro, and back in 2022. SOFR was introduced, and the U.S. Federal Reserve went off LIBOR. And why that's important is it gave the Federal Reserve in America control over the interest rates, and those interest rates were always set in London, the London Interbank Offer Rate. Okay, that's LIBOR. So we have now been able to control the interest rates, which have been high, right? Higher than they really need to be. And what that has done is it's sucked liquidity out of the world and into the United States. And as emerging markets, and I'm not saying this like, I'm just reporting the facts as I see them. I'm not saying I think this is great. I'm just telling you how I see it. Emerging markets are having more trouble with liquidity, and they are starting to sell off some of their US treasuries. So the importance of the Stablecoin Act is that these now private companies that are going to issue these stablecoins have to have, they will all be backed by US treasuries and long bonds. So as foreign sovereigns begin to reduce their holdings of US treasuries, this money from heaven, this magic internet money, is now going to become a primary buyer of US treasuries. And it's going to stabilize the existing financial system as we lose some of our biggest buyers. And that will keep America in the driver's seat of a global economy. That's more so their focus than the idea of some radicals on a chain that they don't care about emerging this decentralized stablecoin. And by the time they catch on to what it is, it's Pandora's box, dude. You will be up and running. And if you go back into those chats where Maria was talking, like those IRC chats, he wanted the stablecoins, the P stables, to be there for emerging markets. I think the term he used was the BRICS. I remember reading that in those IRC chats, right? So that to me, Maria's original intent of the build out of the Atropa system was to give people like you, Stephen, in Australia, the ability to get dollar exposure without the risk of having your assets frozen by the United States government.
And I just want to add to that too, because it sounds like from what you were saying earlier about Bitcoin not actually being a stable store of value, that governments do want to push a USDC or CBDC of some sort on us. So basically, they want to be the ones that are regulating and enforcing the usage of the stable coin, and then there's pDAI, right? Am I following you correctly?
Yeah, they do. They want the world to still operate on a US dollar system. The means of transfer of value is going digital, right? So we're just moving into a new market, man. We're moving all that value that's in the TradFi system. In the next 20 years, your stock markets will be on blockchains. Your asset ownerships will be in NFTs. It's all coming, and it's all happening at a relatively fast rate. 20 years, when you think about rejiggering the global economy, man, that's relatively fast, right? So there's the introduction of the CBDCs, are the stablecoins. I call them CBDCs because that's what they are. Like, you don't have control of your money if you get into Circle, if you get in to Tether. They can confiscate that stuff from you. So the US dollar standard, I think, will be there in perpetuity.
So I just want to say one thing, and I read this in a Richard Hart post, is that people who hold 1,000 or more Bitcoin take up 40% of the entire Bitcoin supply. All right, so just think about that. When you talk about the volatility and everything that you were just speaking about, but of Bitcoin, it could all go down quite easily, I guess. But yeah, anyways, I see that we got a speaker up here. Wasim, you've got your hand up for a minute. I want to hear what maybe you have to say. Are you with us, Wasim? Wasim Bolis? Bolis? Are you there?
Gotta press the mic.
Wasim, are you with us? There's a microphone button in the bottom left. All right. Anyways, yeah, I just wanted to see if you wanted to say anything, but anyways, we can keep going. Maybe he doesn't have anything to say or can't figure it out.
Zach, I got to bounce, dude. Thanks for hosting this. Really enjoyed it. You know, and appreciate all of you in the community. You know, best of luck, people. We're here for it.
Of course. I mean, this was a good space, man. We talked about a lot, and I think we got a lot of good information out there. It's probably a good time to end the space. If you guys had a good time, you know, give us all a follow up here. Bud, you need more followers, Bud. You have under 500. If you guys enjoyed what you heard tonight, please give Bud a follow. He's a really important person, I think, in our little journey that we have. Like, you're very intelligent, Bud. You give me a lot of good ideas, and you know, you make me think about things in a different way. So I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Zach. I enjoy your stuff. I get value from so many people, man. I appreciate every single person that contributes. Yeah, man. Everybody be kind. Take care of one another. Peace.
Excellent spaces. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Donald, for coming up here and the stuff you've been working on. I'm going to take a look at it.
Cool.
All right, you guys. Mars, have a good one. It's been real.
I just want to say thanks for hosting the space. It was a really good use of my time, especially it's at a hotel, so this is perfect. I'm on the bus right now, so this is awesome. Got to do this instead of study some other shit, so it's great.
Hell yeah. Dragon, thanks for showing up. Steven, thanks for coming, man.
You're welcome.
Appreciate all you guys for being here, and we'll probably try to do this again maybe next week because I'm still off work right now. All right. Well, you guys have a good rest of your evening, and I'll see you on the blockchain.